What's up? This is EJ Stewart.
What if I dropped 40 days, 40 nights?
All you are your words. If there's anything you learned about me, I'm going to keep it 100 with you.
My skill shot will hold for your city for 40 days.
Rest in peace to all my ops.
Let's go!
Let's go is right. What's up? This is EJ Stewart. You are watching 40 Days and Counting, where I do 2 live stream shows per day, or per week. I always do that. 2 live stream shows per week. I did it that way for so many weeks in a row, I always forget. 2 live stream shows per week. One 6 p.m., one Friday 8 a.m. This is the 6 p.m. version. Apologies, getting a little late. Had a couple of things to take care of before we got started, but we are good to go. And this is a big episode because we got an NBA Finals preview coming at you. My good friend David Shepard, the Good Shepard, formerly of Infinity Sports Radio, or Infinity Sports Network rather, and CBS Sports Radio, and now doing great things over at SiriusXM NBA Radio. And you want to talk about a guy doing some big stuff? I seen him on ESPN Radio. Shout out to Freddie Coleman. Shout out to the squad they got over there. He's been a frequent guest on ESPN Radio. So Harry Douglas. I was going to blank on Freddie's co-host. I felt bad. Harry Douglas and Freddie Coleman, they do a phenomenal job. ESPN Radio. Shep's been doing a bunch of really great spots over there with them. So Shep is really doing his thing. Really excited to have him talk about these NBA Finals. He'll be coming in just about a few minutes to break down everything with the NBA Finals. I'll give you guys my prediction for the NBA Finals. If you guys are looking for a more Knicks-centered conversation, you can head over to my Orange and Blue Bloods podcast. An NBA Finals preview episode is up, so you can find that wherever you get your podcast or right here on YouTube if you're watching on YouTube. So we have David Shepard. He joins me in a couple minutes. At 7 p.m., we'll also have LA-based multimedia reporter and social content creator Mykell Mathieu, who is a good friend of mine, and he's been doing phenomenal sports content in LA. He will be here live to talk about the Myles Garrett trade. Myles Garrett is being introduced literally as we speak. This press conference, I believe, is still ongoing. Part of the reason why I was a little late, I wanted to make sure I got some sound from the aftermath that came from, Andrew Berry's press conference today, which had many interesting comments. We also a lot of things happening, of course, with the Rams introducing Myles Garrett. So we'll have plenty to say on what's going on with the Rams situation and the Browns situation. Mykell Mathieu joins us at 7 p.m. Eastern time. And then finally, we will talk about the A.J. Brown trade as well. So a lot happening. This is a big Tuesday that's loaded up. EJ Stewart joining you here. 40 Days and Counting, streaming live, multiple spots, including on YouTube. New Generation Media is where you'll find this on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you jump in the comment section. Let us know what you think about the NBA Finals. Who do you have? We're going to hear from David Shepard in just a moment. Who do you have winning the NBA Finals? What do you think about the Myles Garrett trade to Los Angeles? What do you think about the A.J. Brown trade that's been rumored for so long going over to New England? I want to get your thoughts on it. Make sure you jump in the comment section. Let me know what you think. Of course, you can watch us as well on X. EJ_Stewart is where you'll find me on X. That's where we're streaming live currently. And you can, of course, also find me on Instagram, ActionEJ, and on Buzzer. You want to get locked in on Buzzer. Buzzer's really awesome, man. We're doing sports content, no frills, no noise, just sports talk. Really excited to be doing awesome stuff with Buzzer. You're going to want to sign up. Be sure to sign up whenever you got to, because this is the place where you're going to want to be. A lot of really great stuff is happening there. They already have a great team of content creators doing original stuff, including your boy here for 40 Days and Counting. So make sure you sign up to Buzzer. So this is going to be a fun episode, man. 40 Days and Counting here. And joining me right on the dot, right on time, is my good friend, David Shepard. David Shepard, what's happening, man? This is 40 Days and Counting. You know it's a big deal when Shep's around, because that means we got to talk hoops, and that means we got to talk NBA Finals. So, Shep, thanks for joining me, man. How you feeling?
Oh, my pleasure, EJ. Anything for you, man. Doing well, obviously, man. I'm excited for your Knicks. What an historic rate that they have been at. It's just incredible to see this team gel the way they have. I mean, they're 2 games away from Mike Brown losing his job in year 1, as you know. And for them to pull off these 11 games the way they have, it's incredible, man, what they've pulled off. And, they're going against the face of the NBA at this point, right? In Victor Wembanyama. So we got a really good NBA Finals ahead for ourselves, man. You're doing 40 days and 40 nights again? Didn't you already go through this grueling grind?
So this is not 40 days and 40 nights. We've tamped it down. We call it 40 days and counting because in many ways it's the
Got
same
you.
show. It's the spirit of the show is existing, but I'm not doing the crazy thing of trying to do 40 days and 40 nights consecutively of 2 shows per day. So we're doing one show in the evening per week, one show in the morning per week. So this is the evening version, the Tuesday version that it's supposed to start at 6 p.m. Sometimes we're a little late, like we were today, but typically around 6 p.m. And then we do a morning show Fridays at 8 a.m. So I'm glad I was able to get you. Shep's going to be on the radio tonight on SiriusXM NBA radio. So you want to make sure you lock into Shep tonight as well because he's always doing a phenomenal job. And there's a lot to talk about when it comes to these NBA finals. So you mentioned the Knicks, and you know that is my team. I'll start with this. What is, I think, in your eyes, been most surprising about this Knicks run? This is a team that had NBA Finals expectations, but I think over the course of the season, many folks, for various different reasons, and I think at times valid reasons, jumped off the bandwagon or never believed. So now that they are here, what has surprised you the most about how they got here?
Play of Mykell Bridges, how consistent he has been as a shooter, how confident he has been. Karl Anthony Towns not getting into foul trouble, looking like a number 1 overall draft pick that we all expected him to be, looking like that guy in year 2 in Minnesota that was going for 25 and 10. I think to watch Jalen Brunson not struggle, but not have a Jalen Brunson-like series against the Philadelphia 76ers. And really, they didn't need him to be superstar Jalen Brunson. To watch what he did in game number 1 when he had 17 points in the fourth quarter and overtime in that route against Cleveland when they were down by 22 points in the fourth quarter. It's remarkable to witness Landry Shamet, who began this season with a non-guaranteed contract, and then shoot over 90%, not from the field, from 3 in a conference finals for the Knicks to then get to their first NBA finals this century. And I got to give Mike Brown credit. I've been critical of him. I was one of the many people that felt like this was at best a lateral move, going from Tom Thibodeau to Mike Brown. I personally felt like it was a downgrade. No disrespect to Mike. I know he's a brilliant basketball mind, great defensive mind, but he chokes. Like, I've seen him get swept with Cleveland, right? I've seen him lose a game 7 by a lot on his home floor in Sacramento. I've seen him underachieve with the late, great Kobe Bryant in 2012. So for him to do what he's doing, yeah, this is the best coaching job I've ever seen of Mike Brown. Everything EJ is clicking for New York. They do not have a single weak link at this point, minus maybe a finger of Mitchell Robinson.
Yeah, and that's a big thing we have here now. Mitchell Robinson did practice, but it was kind of, they kept things close to the vest, right? Like Mitchell Robinson didn't speak at media day. He was part of the opening practice where they're kind of doing kind of standard drills. We don't know if he's taking any contact. Actually, I'll play this and you'll be able to hear this as well, Shep. This was Shams Charania earlier today about the expectation for Mitchell Robinson and what we will see from the big man, if we will actually see the big man.
I'm told that Mitchell Robinson still fully plans, is resolute on playing in Game 1 on Wednesday night against the Spurs. The Knicks still must clear him for that game. What he has is a broken pinky, but even more specifically, damage to his 5th metacarpal. And as we see him right there, no brace, no splint, nothing on that right hand. Right. He's going to need to wear a brace, I'm told, a pretty sizable one, in order to be able to play.
So he's going to try to play, it sounds like, but it still doesn't seem certain. And Mike Brown, before today, had said basically that there is no official status yet. They don't know what they're going to designate him when they make the official call on what his status is for the series, but that they were going to see today. And then we saw what he did, which was the open part of practice. How important do you think Mitchell Robinson is to the Knicks? And if he is not out there, how does that make things more challenging for them?
Well, he's huge because he's one of the bodies on New York that can cause havoc for Victor Wembanyama. We'll see what happens with OG Anunoby. We'll see what happens with Karl Anthony Towns and guarding it. But the one Nick I have confidence in terms of creating discomfort for Wemby, would be Mitchell Robinson. And he doesn't have to have all 10 fingers working to its possible optimum form, right? Like, he's not a shooter, as you know. He's not leading the fast break. He's not putting the ball, on the hardwood floor and driving to the basket. He's an energy activity guy. He's a DeAndre Jordan, right? Like, I think that's the best way to kind of describe Mitchell Robinson. It's a very unfortunate injury, but without question, if you are going to beat the San Antonio Spurs, you have to slow down Victor Wembanyama. You're never going to stop him, but you got to slow him down. You got to create those nights where he goes 5 of 15 from the floor, 15 points and 6 rebounds, right? Mitchell Robinson is a huge part of that equation. I'm curious, Jeremy Sohan, he's got a fascinating career, EJ, because obviously you saw him not just play in San Antonio, he was a starter.
Yes,
He was a starter a couple of years ago. He's nowhere to be found. Like, what would you say? This is a 9-man rotation with Jordan Clarkson? Is that
Yeah,
accurate?
they're
With
playing
the
about
Knicks right
9.
now?
Yeah, because you got
Right.
Deuce,
So,
Shamit, Mitch, and then
yeah.
Clarkson is playing.
Yeah, and then Clarkson would be that ninth guy. Like, Landry Shamet is guaranteed to play in the NBA Finals every single game. Right? Deuce McBride, guaranteed. Obviously, Mitchell Robinson, guaranteed. So, do you maybe insert a Jeremy Sohan? And maybe this could be an incredibly blessing in disguise for them, because maybe he's chomping at the bit to get back at his former team for benching him early in his
Yeah.
fourth season, and this is his ultimate revenge tour. So it's going to be fascinating to see how this series plays out. But Mitchell Robinson is the Isaiah Hartenstein body type that can really get under the skin of Victor Wembanyama.
Talking about Victor Wembanyama, and this is in many ways, he hasn't won a championship yet, but it does feel like a coronation of him as a new face of the NBA. A lot of folks come into this year as great as they thought he maybe would be individually, did not expect him to lead the Spurs to the NBA Finals, and they come into the NBA Finals as the favorites. Do you feel like at this point in time, Victor Wembanyama is the best player in the NBA? And what kind of expectation are you having for him in his first NBA Finals?
Right now, he's the best player in the NBA. Right now. He was not the best player in the regular season. He was the most valuable player in the regular season, but he was not the best.
So you would have voted Victor.
I would have voted Victor Wembanyama MVP because no one else has his arsenal. No one else has his repertoire. Like, even if he goes out and gives you 15 on a given night, he is going to be, without question, the most definitive force and impenetrable presence on defense that we have in any game that he's a part of. So in that regard, just what he does defensively, I mean, he's the greatest defensive player since Hakeem Olajuwon, and that's arguably the second greatest defensive player in the history of the game. Oh yeah, the guy shoots threes like he's a shooting guard, and he puts the ball on the floor like he's a one. Yes, I am with you. It is somewhat premature, but the way sports society works.
Yeah.
We are we always want to be the first to say, hey, he's next. And once he's next, we want to be the first to say, hey, he's greater than so-and-so. And once he becomes greater than so-and-so, we want to be the first to say, this is the greatest of his era. This is the greatest, of his respective sports. So that's what we're doing with Victor Wembanyama. The praise, of course, is going to be premature by nature. But at the same time, and I'll make sure I say this as well on SiriusXM NBA radio, because it's a point that I really want to emphasize. EJ, this is the greatest 22-year-old we've ever seen. I don't know if you would agree with that or not, but obviously we weren't around for Kareem when he was 22. We were not around for MJ when he was 22. I was born that year, close enough, but I was not around.
So that would be a rookie. That would be a rookie MJ, right at 22, pretty much.
Yeah. So maybe
Rookie
I was born a little bit after that, but right. But because EJ, the closest comparison we have is Magic, who led a team to an NBA Finals at 20 years old, but
and
Kareem
22, as I was
he was
and 22. Because so a funny stat, and I don't know if you noticed that, and maybe you want to keep this because it's good for maybe your show tonight. There are the first 6, the youngest 6 Finals MVPs, and maybe this is a good omen for the Spurs. 3 of them are Spurs. It's Tim Duncan.
Yes.
It's
Parker,
and it's Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi Leonard and Duncan were 22. Parker was 24. Magic is the youngest at
Parker
20.
Was 07. Right.
And then Magic did it again in 82, I think. He was 22.
Yeah.
So Magic
And
did
he
it
should have
twice.
won.
Shows
And
you
he
how
should have
great
won in
he is.
'84. And Magic should have won in '84 too.
Yes.
But he choked away that series when he was now nicknamed Tragic Johnson
Right. Yeah.
because of the
Exactly.
key turnovers at the end of that Celtics series. And then what happened in '85? He whooped the Celtics behind.
Yep.
But EJ, we've never like usually when a guy makes the playoffs, he gets knocked off in round one, right? Or he wins a round, but he gets knocked off in round two. And the next year he comes back and he gets to a conference finals. And the next year he comes back and he gets to an NBA finals. Victor is the only player I can ever recall in the history of the NBA as the best player that gets the postseason and bypasses all those steps. Can't say that about anybody else in NBA history.
I was going to ask you about that. Now, that was that leads right into my next question. The Spurs, for a lot of their detractors on the other side, was, well, this team is too young. Victor's too young. This team is too young. You got to face some kind of playoff pain before you actually find the success, right? And now they haven't won a championship yet, but they are in the NBA Finals. Why do you think, outside of Victor, why do you think the Spurs were able to overcome the usual trip-ups for young teams throughout the playoffs to find themselves all the way in the NBA Finals?
Brian Wright. Brian Wright. You know that name.
Yeah.
I don't know if most of your audience does. He's the Spurs general manager.
Yep.
EJ, he hit on everything. Everything. Devin Vassell wasn't drafted in the top 10. Perfect pick a few years ago. Keldon Johnson, I believe it was the 29th overall pick.
Yeah, something
becomes
like
the
that.
6th man of the year. When there were people, even this regular season, EJ, that said Dylan Harper, he was way too high to go number 2. Look at what Con Knipple and BJ Etchcombe are doing. Yeah, no one's saying that anymore, are they? Because Dylan Harper may be the most poised rookie I can recall in the last 20 years. What he's done in the postseason, especially in the Western Conference Finals, when he's outplayed Shai Gilgeous-Alexander not once but twice, he's had to hit on all these picks. EJ, think about this now. How many people in your audience would be able to tell you who Zachary Richelet is?
I hope the Knicks fans, people that watched the Hawks series, they saw him in Game 1, and that was kind of the last he saw of him. But besides that, he's become a mystery man to a lot of people.
They might have seen him if they didn't blink, right?
Right, exactly, pretty much.
Right? We'll talk about Alexander Sarr. Nice piece in Washington. What has he done the last couple of years? The number 3 overall pick, I'm trying to think who that was. I don't know why it's slipping my brain. Who was that? Man, why am I not remembering this? Who was the number 3 pick? Why am I not getting this?
In 25?
Who was the number...
Or in 24?
No, in 2024. The number 3 pick in 2024. I don't know why I'm blanking on this. But the
That's one of the
point
things
is,
I feel like I don't know why. I feel like I would know it if you didn't ask me on the
everything
spot.
right.
By the way, it's Reece Shepard.
player in that draft, and Stephon Castle.
Reece Shepard.
Stephon Castle is clearly the best player from that draft. So everything had to go in the way of the San Antonio Spurs for them to make this work. Julian Champagnie, right? Julian Champagnie was cut. Who's the pick?
Sorry, it was Reece Shepard. I don't know. Maybe I'm really delayed. It's Reece Shepard.
Reece Shepard. Thank you, EJ. Yeah, Reece Shepard. He had some nice moments, right, with the Rockets this season, with Fred VanVleet going down. What is he most known for in the postseason? Giving the ball away to LeBron James, and ultimately allowing the Lakers to have a 3-0 lead. He couldn't even hack it in the first round. Dylan Harper is outplaying the regular season MVP in back-to-back seasons in the Western Conference Finals. Everything the Spurs did had to go right in terms of their personnel, and they scored a 10 out of 10 with all of these decisions. Luke Cornett may have had the play of the Western Conference Finals.
Yeah,
it's just everything had to work out for them. And R.C. Buford, we credit Sam Presti a lot for his evaluation process and his decision making. R.C. Buford, Brian Wright, they are the top of the NBA in that regard. And obviously, you need dogs, EJ. You need guys that can go out there and guard you 90 feet out. You need guys that can go out there and shoot with confidence and keep shooting, even if they are 0 of 10 to begin a game, like we saw from Keldon Johnson, who couldn't buy a bucket, couldn't throw a beach ball in the ocean for the first 3 quarters of game number 7 in the Western Conference Finals, and then has 8 points in like 2 minutes. So I'm glad you mentioned that the Spurs are a lot more than Wemby, because as you know, EJ, the best player in Game 7 of the Western Conference Finals, and I don't think it was close, was SGA. The
Yeah.
Spurs were the better
Yeah.
team.
No question. Great point all around, Shep. David Shepard joining me for just a little bit longer, and thanks for joining me as always. You always catch him on SiriusXM NBA Radio. I gotta ask you, people want to know, it's the NBA Finals. Who do you have winning this? How many games and why? And of course, who becomes Finals MVP?
Well, I'm already in the doghouse with Dexter Henry because I doubted his Knicks, and here I'm going to come on your platform, EJ, and doubt your Knicks. So I apologize in
Again,
advance.
you've been doubting the Knicks for every stretch of the way, so this is
I
great
know.
for us, by the way, because every
I
time you
know.
doubt the
I
Knicks,
know.
they seem to play better. The more you seem to go against them, so
But EJ, if we're being honest, and I know you've addressed this on your show, and I'm sure you've addressed this on WFAN. I'm sure you have. But the pathway to getting here for the New York Knicks, is it fair to say it's been the easiest? I'm going to answer your question about the prediction, but my question for you is this the easiest path we've ever seen
no,
getting to an NBA Finals?
not even
Who's
close.
had an easier path?
The Celtics, just 2 years ago, they played a injured Tyrese Halliburton. They played a Cavs team with no heart, and then they played the Magic in the first round. That was easy.
So the Knicks played a Cavs team with no heart, ×2 with James Harden.
Right, but this is the team that got to the conference finals, so it's a lot better than
Well,
the team
they-
that's
well,
the Cavs,
they-
the Spurs, what's the name, the Celtics did a couple years ago. And this
Well, they
team
got
had
to the conference.
this team had a much better version of Evan Mobley than the Celtics played.
Fair, but they got to a conference finals because Jalen Duren thought he was auditioning for Space Jam 3, with the Monstars completely taking his talent last 2 months of the last 2 months of, I say maybe the last month of the season with the postseason, because he was a disappearing guy. EJ, he goes for 20 and 11 in the regular season. He's a top 15 player in the sport, and he becomes a marginal player at best in the postseason. I can't remember the last time someone regressed that much right in front of our very eyes for somebody to be all NBA caliber, and then for him to ultimately be somebody that was
Yeah,
a
he lost himself.
liability
He
in the
lost himself a
postseason.
lot of money. He lost himself a lot
Yeah.
of money with how he played.
Yeah.
No question about that.
And look, they faced Joel Embiid, and I know Joel Embiid and healthy will never go in the same sentence, but he was even unhealthy by his standards. Like, he was literally dragging his 76ers on one foot. Like, that's how bad he was out there. So the Celtics, they don't have Jason Tatum in game number 7. They would have won that series easy against Philly. I understand the Knicks. You cannot fault them for playing who's in front of them, and they were historically great with what they reeled off. My concern for the Knicks is the rest, which is ultimately going to turn into rust, and we saw that factor absolutely come to play in game number 1 versus the Cavaliers when they were down 22 points. And if the Cavaliers didn't have quitting as part of their middle name, the Cavaliers would have easily gone up 1-0 in that series. I see a similar fate for the Knicks when it comes to facing the San Antonio Spurs. And I also think the fact that, man, they're just going against a team that just has no quit in them. Like, they got no, weak link. Like, that's not the case with any teams the Knicks have faced so far. And there's not an answer for Wemby. Jalen Brunson's a great player. Great player. He's an awesome player. He's a top 10 player in the sport. Easy. You can make a legitimate argument. He is the best player in the East. He's better than Giannis. He's better than Cade. He's better than Tatum. But how's he going to look against Devin Vassell and Stephon Castle when those guys are easily 3-4 inches bigger than him and have the same level of foot speed, lateral quickness, and obviously are not afraid to body him up? So Jalen Brunson didn't have that in the Philadelphia season. He certainly didn't have that in the Cleveland series when you and I could probably get by those turnstiles in James Harden and Donovan Mitchell. So I say all that to say I'm also the first to admit, EJ, that I was wrong about the New York Knicks, and I was completely off, and I doubted them, and I never should have. And I could be wrong here. I could be wrong. And the Knicks will once again show me the blank up. And I hope they do, because it's a fan base, and it's somebody like yourself who has rooted for this team through thick and thin that deserves this championship. And it has been 53 years. The only thing that's more overdue is the Jets making the playoffs in sports. I would be very happy. I would be very happy for the New York Knicks. I would fear for the city, but I would be extremely happy for the New York Knicks franchise and people like yourself and Dexter Henry and Chris Persian and people that have covered this team and that have rooted through this team through thick and thin and through highs and lows.
Shep, that's awesome, man. How many games the Spurs win this? By the way, who's winning MVP? Those are the things we still need to get out of this.
Yeah. So Wemby's. So if the Spurs win, which I envision that to be the case, Wemby will be the MVP because of his impact defensively. You just can't teach 7'5", and you can't teach 7'5" and having that kind of skill set, that kind of 8-foot wingspan, and that kind of will, because you don't see this type of desire. And I think that's something that's lost in the conversation, EJ, about Victor Wembanyama. Yeah, we all know the guy can shoot from 30 feet out like it's nothing, but his spirit, his competitive nature. Bigs, they rely on size. They won the genetic lottery. They don't necessarily have that dog in them. Kareem had it. Shaq had it in spurts. But when you think of the all-time great competitors, you think of Larry Bird and Magic and Michael and Kobe. You don't think of bigs. They don't have that motor, right? Kevin Garnett to some degree had it, but this is a first with Wemby. So I believe Wemby's going to be the MVP. I believe it's going to be the Spurs in 5 or 6. And I kind of hope the Knicks, deep down prove me wrong. I know who you have in this series.
Well, listen, my pick is out. Orange and Blue Bloods is out, so I'm picking the Knicks in 6. So we'll talk more about that in a little bit. But David Shepard, this was phenomenal. Appreciate you as always. Thanks so much for coming out, and let people know where they can follow you and where they can listen to you.
Yeah, I appreciate that, EJ. SiriusXM NBA Radio. I'll be hosting the finals post-game show on Channel 86 with NBA former Coach of the Year Sam Mitchell. And I've said it before, and I've said it again. You're phenomenal what you do. Always proud to see you continue to climb, EJ. And, hey, can I ask you this, man? Very quickly.
Yeah.
I know you're hosting at WFN and have been for years.
Yep.
And continue to kill it there. Are you hosting on Westwood yet?
I haven't hosted on Westwood yet. Westwood's not asked me to host at any point yet. Not saying that they won't.
Okay.
That has not happened.
Okay. I've been a guest on there a few times now.
Okay.
All right? And let me just put this out there. They will be that much better with you hosting. Like, there is an angle, a perspective that you bring that's unique. You're class personified. You bust your ass. And you have a relationship with that audience. I think it would be a great benefit to them, an already great network, to have EJ Stewart host for them. I think that would be an absolute win-win. I just want to put that out there.
Well, I appreciate that, Shep. The check's in the mail. but I love you, brother, and thanks for coming on, man. Thanks for the kind words as always, and we'll be talking soon, man.
You're the man, EJ. Thanks for having me, man. Appreciate you.
You got it, man. That's awesome. How about that? David Shepard joining me live here on 40 Days and Counting. Very kind words there at the end. By the way, Westwood, of course, has a great lineup. I don't want to make it seem like I'm like, oh, they got scrubs over there. They got a great host. Shout out to my guy, Pat Boyle, of course, friend of mine. Shout out to Nick Costos, another friend of mine. Shout out to who I got, so many. John Lunn, John Mallory. Great guys. And of course, Mr. Whittingham as well over there. So they got a great team over there, and it's been fun to do some shows producing with those guys. Those guys are a blast. And again, Pat and Nick I've known for a little while now because my Infinity Sports days. But thanks, of course, to Shep, not just for the great appearance and for the kind words. Always appreciate the great David Shepard joining, even if I think he's wrong. We got a comment in the chat. I put it up there, but I put it up again. Spencer Seek saying, David Shepard on my video screen. That is right. Had to do it big for the NBA Finals. And, sometimes I get in my head about guests, and, it's a very busy time. And sometimes I'm like, oh, I don't want to bother this person. I don't know what they're doing or whatever. Especially Shepard. He literally works for the NBA's official radio station. But I was like, you know what? Like, I'll give him a text, see if he's ready to come on. And he was obviously very willing and able. And listen, I think what's been funny about Shep, and Shep's been doing awesome, by the way. If you want to follow Shep on Air, I wanted him to tell us X too. Shep on Air is his X account. I don't know what his Instagram is off the top of my head. I think he's on doing TikTok stuff as well. And he has his own YouTube channel. So you definitely want to follow Shep everywhere you go. David Shepard, you search it, you'll find him anywhere. But he has found a little bit of the ire of Knicks Twitter and Knicks social media, because I think he has shown up even in a couple of videos where, like, Knicks fans do their mashups where they're like, oh, look at all the people that were wrong. And I'm seeing, Becky Hammond. I'm seeing Draymond Green. I'm seeing Shaquille O'Neal. And I see David Shepard. I'm like, hey, I know that guy. Whoa, one one of these guys I know. That's crazy. So Shep, listen. That one thing about Shep, he's not gonna shy away from any take he has. What I respect about Shep, I respect Shep just in general, but what I respect about him as a host and a content creator is he will be the first person to tell you he was wrong, which is something I do. It's a quality I have as well. I hate when like the person, whether you're, and I don't, but like I said, this is the most authentic version of any show I do. So I keep it like I tell you, keep it 100, tell you like how I feel. Sometimes it may not be the most PR or PC way to put things or how to be so industry, but that's not the point of the show. I always hate the talking head who will be bold with the take. I don't mind being bold. I do feel a way when people get upset when fans of other teams come after them. I think just either give it back or just take it. Like, like it is what it is. I will give it back. I don't care. I'm like, good. You hate LeBron fans after me, Draymond Warriors fans after me, whatever. I'll just tweet back at them or comment back at them. Or ignore it and just take it in stride. At the end of the day, we're all lucky to be doing this. But what bugs me even more than that, the people who can't take, like, people coming back at them for strong takes, especially fans, is the people who will, like, make every excuse possible for why they were wrong and how they actually weren't wrong. Or just make things up and say they actually were right. Like, oh, I said this was going to happen when they didn't. That's the thing I can't stand. And I've learned in this media game, in this media business, you, the listener, watcher, you that like locks into sports content in a major way, you probably care and keep score. The general public that watches these shows and listens to these podcasts probably don't. So there's no win-loss record when it comes to takes. We don't keep scoring that way unless you're a Knicks fan. And I love Shep because he's like, again, like he said, I'll be clear. I have been very wrong about everything I've said about the Knicks. But that does not mean I won't double down and say I think the Knicks are going to once again lose this series and lose the NBA Finals. But shout out to Shep. Great job as always. Always great to have him. And like I said, I will give you guys my official finals pick. Remember, at 7 o'clock, we'll have the great Mykell Mathieu joining me here. LA-based multimedia reporter, content creator, covers sports, covers everything LA. He's the guy I wanted today because you got the big Myles Garrett trade that happened this week. Myles Garrett, the superstar edge rusher for the Cleveland Browns, being traded to the Los Angeles Rams, seemingly out of nowhere. I hadn't heard anything about any Myles Garrett trade rumors. Seemed like it was quiet on the Myles Garrett front. I don't think anyone really knew why he was still there. Nobody really knew why he shied away from his trade request from last year. Remember last year? He was like, I don't want to play here anymore. It doesn't even matter about the money. This team just sucks. And then the Browns said, here's life-changing money. Will you stay? He said, okay, fine. So I think he lost a lot of respect for a lot of people after what happened last year. So I did not have it all. And according to Andrew Berry, who also literally said this, did not have a Myles Garrett trade in June on my bingo card. But this is where we're at. So we'll have Mykell Mathieu, who covers everything LA sports, including the Rams, on to talk about how this trade came about and what the expectations are for the Rams. So you'll hear a little bit from Sean McVay a little bit later, as well as Andrew Berry, the general manager of the Rams, because this is, again, a blockbuster trade. But before we get to any more NFL stuff, I do want to wrap a bow on the NBA Finals. So you got, of course, Knicks, Spurs, they face off. Game 1 is Wednesday night at 8:30. This is what the NBA could have hoped for in its biggest and brightest and best dreams possible. This is a great matchup, right? You got, to me, really compelling storylines on both sides. Victor Wembanyama, the next one, the next legend, the next generational player, the next face of the NBA. I would argue he may now be the face of the NBA. Like I mentioned to Shep, I think this coronation, if it's not for a championship, at least it has fully coronated him as the face of the NBA. That it feels like that's what's happened. Especially when you look at, if we're doing and I hate to do this game, but I don't know. We don't really ever have to, but I think in the media we feel like we have to, especially when we're talking about basketball for some reason, to make it about it. But if you have seen the ratings for the NBA Finals, they've been phenomenal. So the ratings would suggest that this is definitely the new face of the NBA. So you got everything with Victor Wembanyama and a organization that, while has not necessarily been a ratings darling or a organization that people have looked at and say, ooh, that's cool, exciting, and fun. In fact, they've kind of gone the opposite way. They've run backwards away from the Spurs when they've been pushed into the limelight. That is not this version of Spurs. So I actually think the pedigree of the franchise being a championship franchise, and a franchise people are familiar with, even if they hated the older versions, is actually helping them because people are very familiar with this brand and they're very familiar with Wemby, who is a must-see kind of athlete. So you got that on one side. And then you got everything that encompasses the New York Knicks, which, how long do you want this list? Do you want to talk about the fact that the Knicks have a 53-year championship drought? You want to talk about how this is, drinking game kind of, quote, the mecca of basketball? You want to talk about Jalen Brunson and his rise as a New York sports icon? You want to talk about just the team in general, a team that is on a generational style heater when it comes to how they are dominating their opponents. So they're playing extremely well. It's this finals has everything you want. This is what Adam Silver would have loved to have drawn up. And there's a little bit of side stuff, like there's a rematch of the NBA Cup final, which I think for the NBA legacy of what they want for the NBA Cup to be, I think they're really awesome and are really excited about that. And then you have the pedigree of the 1999 NBA Finals, which was historic in many ways. This was the last time Knicks were in the finals. This was 26 years ago. This was, of course, the Spurs' first NBA title and began the Spurs dynasty. So this was a huge, huge event in every way in 99, even if the finals was kind of not memorable. The Spurs won fairly easily. And now we're all back to that. So there's so many storylines coming in. When we talk about this series and how this will shake out, I said it on Orange and Blue Bloods, and I'll say it again. I think that this is, in my opinion, the best team the Knicks have faced in the NBA playoffs. To me, that's pretty clear. I also think it's the best team the Spurs have faced. And yes, I'm including the Oklahoma City Thunder, because you got to think about this. The version of the Oklahoma City Thunder that showed up in the Western Conference Finals and played throughout the Western Conference Finals was not the juggernaut that won the NBA Finals last year or dominated much of the NBA season this year. This was a team that did not have Jalen Williams. Albeit, I know he did miss a lot of regular season, but it was a team that did not have Jalen Williams, so certainly wasn't last year's version. It's a team that didn't have Jalen Williams. It's a team that didn't have A.J. Mitchell. It's a team who had Chet Holmgren, question mark, but did they really have him with the way he was playing out there? And when you watch those games, it's like I said last week when I was watching the series. I was like, this doesn't look like the Thunder. They're kind of struggling offensively. Nothing is easy. I was like, I think I'd rather face this version of the Thunder than the Spurs just because they're not able-bodied. They don't have the same pop that they usually have. They may have the most frustrating player to guard and the most difficult player to guard in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and I think that is true and fair given the fouls, given all the things, but I felt like the team itself actually wasn't that great. The team that was playing the Spurs. Which is why I thought the Spurs would win Game 7 and why I think they did win. But it's also why I actually feel pretty confident about the Knicks, because I think the Spurs are not seeing a team like the Knicks. The Knicks don't have too many lemons offensively. And I say that to say, like, the Thunder needed some legacy type performances from Alex Caruso to win games and stay in games. They need some legacy performances from, and I'm not dissing Jared McCain, he's a very good young player, but I mean, this guy is a second-year player who wasn't even on the team and was still fighting to get minutes in Philly because of that mortal combat that was that backcourt of trying to get time with VJ Edgecombe and of course Tyrese Maxey while he was trying to come back from an injury. Like, those guys had to have huge games for the OKC offense to thrive in the way it typically does. The Knicks don't need that. They don't need generational games from Jose Alvarado. That's just not what's... They have Mikal Bridges healthy. They have OG Anunoby healthy. They have Karl-Anthony Towns. They have Josh Hart. They have Landry Shamet shooting at a high level. They have Deuce McBride playing healthy and playing well. Like, they have way more weapons offensively, and I think they run a better offense than the OKC Thunder at least were in the NBA playoffs. Again, I'm taking the version of the Thunder I saw combined with the version of the Knicks I'm seeing right now. So I think for all the talk about all the Knicks not seen a team like the Spurs have not seen a team like the Knicks, and that is a big factor in this series coming up. I think when I think about keys, number one, of course, what the Knicks do with Wemby. Mitchell Robinson's impact and presence in this series is going to be massive. He has been the primary matchup on Wemby whenever he's been on the floor. The Knicks, in the 3 games they played, they kind of yo-yoed different people guarding Wemby if Mitch wasn't out there, or there was one game, the only loss they had, they won 2 out of 3 against San Antonio in the regular season. The one loss they had, they kind of had to yo-yo everybody, but OG was the primary matchup. In the other games, it was basically Mitchell Robinson. For every minute he was out there, he was guarding Victor Wembanyama. So they're going to need him in this series because he's definitely their best chance at slowing him down and being competitive, as you probably hear Mr. Softy outside. Great timing for this, of course. But no, Victor Wembanyama is a force. He's a force on both ends, so how they guard him is going to be important. Also, how they attack offensively is going to be important, too, because for all the talk about, well, Knicks have Karl-Anthony Towns, so they'll be able to take Wemby out of the paint. Not going to be that easy. The Spurs, I almost guarantee you, will not put Wemby on Karl-Anthony Towns. At the very least, not to start games. I would expect to see Wemby guarding Josh Hart, which means Josh Hart has to make shots, which is a huge factor in this series. I think if Josh Hart makes jump shots, or the Knicks just don't play Josh Hart and find someone else in the lineup to make jump shots, and they can play 5 out effectively, I think the Knicks probably win the series. I think that the offensive potential that the Knicks have against this Spurs defense, as great as it is extremely high if they're able to get Wemby out of the paint and run their offense effectively, which is what they did they played 3 games, so that's 12 combined quarters, 11 quarters. Their offense was awesome in all the games they played against the Spurs this year, except for one, the 4th quarter of the 2nd game. And, 10. They were not good in the 1st quarter in the 3rd game they played in March. So 10 of the 12 quarters, Knicks offensively were fine against this very vaunted defense. So I think the Knicks will will be able to score the ball against the team. I don't think that's going to be a problem, but Josh Hart is going to have to make shots. And, Shep mentioned it. I'm very curious about the matchup with Jalen Brunson. He mentioned, and he makes great points about the reality that these are excellent defenders that the Spurs have on the perimeter when you're talking about Devin Vassell and the primary that I think will be Stephon Castle. Though, again, listen to Orange Blue Bloods, I went kind of deep into why I'm not 100% sure because they tried Fox on him and they've tried other guys. But the difference, though, is unlike early in the series against Atlanta when Brunson struggled and throughout the regular season or other past series, right? Like the issues he may have had with Aaron Nesmith at times against Indiana. This is a very different Knicks offense once again. And it's an offense that's not actually being orchestrated so much by Jalen Brunson. A lot of it's being done off the ball. A lot of it is allowing Karl-Anthony Towns to run the offense. I think in this series you're going to need Josh Hart to actually run a lot of the offense so that the Spurs can't get into their full court pressure and slow the Knicks into getting into their half-court offense. Mykell Bridges will run some offense. I think the Knicks will play 2 point guards at times. They did it in all 3 games in the regular season. So that's going to be a huge key is will the Spurs still be able to contain Brunson, who they did a good job on this year in the 3 games they played. How will that change with the wrinkle in the Knicks offense? They're all really important questions. I think who wins the offensive glass is going to be important. The Knicks dominated the offensive glass in the 2 games that they won. But also for the Knicks, man, if you're the Spurs, they gotta be able to get into the paint. This is a team that provides so much rim pressure with their guards. As big as the conversation is about Wemby, and deservedly so, he's a generational player. I still think a lot of this is just as important as can you contain their guards and their dribble penetration. I mean, I think the reality is at times it's just hard to stay in front of Fox, Harper, and Castle. Guys that they can play all together if they want to because of the size of Harper and Castle, both 6'5", 6'6". Many teams just don't have the volume of perimeter defenders to guard those guys. The Knicks, I think, are one of the teams that potentially has enough guys. The Thunder, in theory, were one of those teams as well. And they kind of had varying degrees of success throughout that series, but not enough, clearly, because they lost. Like, those guys are a handle. And they're really tough, and they're physical, and they get downhill. And they actually allow for a lot of those open looks that you see from a Julian Champagnie who's shooting the ball so well, and from a Devin Vassell who's shooting the ball so well. But at the end of the day, when we talk about a prediction, I'm going with the Knicks winning this series in 6 games. I do think experience will matter. I think when I mentioned that stat earlier about how of the 6 youngest NBA Finals MVPs of all time, 3 of them are Spurs. Kawhi, Duncan, and Parker. The difference with Wemby in this go around is in those three instances, those guys had either former NBA champions booing them as high end support and arguably still the best players on the team. Not on Duncan, but definitely not in the Duncan '99. Duncan was the best player, even though David Robinson was still an all-star, so awesome. But definitely Parker was not the best player when he won the Finals MVP against Cleveland. It was Duncan. And I think when Kawhi won the MVP, he was still kind of emerging. He was only 22 years old. I think you could argue probably Parker was the best player. You could argue Duncan too. But it's different. There is no Parker, Duncan, or David Robinson on this team. There is no like surefire Hall of Famer or former NBA champ, multiple NBA champion who has your back, who can work through these tough challenges of going through an NBA Finals. This is all on Wemby, literally all on Wemby. And I think at a certain point, that experience catches up to you. I think the Spurs at times throughout this playoff run, throughout this playoff run, have shown their youth, whether it was Wemby elbowing Nas Reed in the face, whether it was I thought really weird performances from Wemby and the entire team in Game 3 and Game 5 of the Western Conference Finals. I don't know if they've necessarily just gotten past that yet. And the last thing I'll do before we get my guy Mykell Mathieu in here to talk some Rams, I want you to hear this sound from Wembanyama because I was a little surprised he said this, but this is what he had to say about the Spurs and how they got to come back down from their Game 7 win.
Coming back down from this is a challenge, and it's not done yet. We still need to really come back down to earth and realize that we haven't done the hardest yet. The job isn't done at all. So we still got about, I don't know, what time is it? Like 30 plus hours to recenter. And
that takes maturity. And we're going to learn in this NBA Finals that they're able to do that and able to come down from Game 7. But it is not going to be an easy task. I think the Knicks will be a little more centered. I think they'll be a little more in the moment and be able to handle the pressures that come with the NBA Finals. And I just think that they're a great matchup for the Spurs. I felt that way all season. So when it comes to the NBA Finals pick, I'm going Knicks in 6. CJ Stewart here. You're watching 40 Days and Counting. This has been a big sports week so far. NBA Finals are here, but the NFL has had major storylines, including what was the massive trade in the league. Two happened, but the one that I want to talk about at this point in time is Myles Garrett going to LA. He was introduced literally just minutes ago to LA. Andrew Berry, the general manager for the Browns, had his, what had happened was a press conference hours before. So this is still a hot story, and there's no better person to have right now than my good friend. He's a LA-based multimedia reporter, social media content creator, doing all things sports, all things LA. My guy, Mykell Mathieu, joins me here on 40 Days and Counting. So good to have you on the show, man. How you doing?
No, doing pretty good, man. Excited for this NBA Finals. Excited because the Rams are making moves and look like they're like, we won a championship once again. F them picks. Let's go and get a championship. So I'm excited for that.
Yeah, we got to get your thoughts on this because I feel like you're in many ways Mr. LA when it comes to LA sports, and the Rams have made massive moves this offseason. Some of them very controversial. But let's begin with this move for Myles Garrett. So they trade for Myles Garrett. They give up a future first, a future third, and Jarrett Verse, who is a Pro Bowl caliber player, a guy that they drafted, a guy they like a lot, and someone that Sean McVay spoke very highly of today in the press conference, said that he handled this trade very well, and he's a great character guy, someone that also Andrew Berry spoke highly of as well. When it comes to the Rams and making this trade, why do you feel like the Rams pushed that red button to make the ultimate move for someone like Myles Garrett, despite what they have already, which is a team that has been one of the favorites to go back to the Super Bowl potentially this year after coming up just short last year?
Man, winning a Super Bowl isn't promised, man. So whenever you have that window, you have to take advantage of it. And that their window isn't too wide, right? Matthew Stafford isn't getting any younger. He's a guy that's been banged up, coming off probably his best season of his career, winning the MVP. So you want to take advantage of that. Devontae Adams, an older guy. right? So that's why they were in a win now situation. So we go from the draft where, I was there at draft day for the Rams and everybody like, what is going on? Drafting Ty Simpson. What was that move all about? We should have just believed in Les Snead and what he's able to do, because now you bring in the best pass rusher in the NFL coming off of a record-breaking season, and now he's finally in a space where it's like, I can go and win. So they had to make this move, right? The secondary was an issue. You bring in Jalen Watson, you bring in Trent McDuffie from the Chiefs. So you like, we got that fixed. Can our pass rush be better? Right? 2 years ago, they finished the season strong where it's like, yo, they may be a problem for some years. Last season, it wasn't as potent as everyone expected, right? Even JV, who's a great guy, he only finished with 7 sacks. So if you have an opportunity to go get a guy who had 23 sacks, you have to make this move. And I know they traded what some people feel is a lot, trading a 25-year-old pass rusher like Jared Verse, trading a first, a second, and a third. But it's Myles Garrett we're talking about, right? This trade reminds me a lot of the Reggie White to the Packers trade in the 90s that helped the Packers get over the top. And that's what it's all about. The Rams are like, last time we host a Super Bowl, we were in it. We want to make sure that's going to happen. So that's why I think that move was made. And hell, it might even wake up the monster named Aaron Donald and get him back in the jersey, which could be a even more of a plus for this Rams team.
Mykell Mathieu joins me here on 40 Days and Counting. We're talking about the Rams trade for Myles Garrett, getting rid of Jared Verse, a two-time Pro Bowler, first, second, and third round picks going to Cleveland. You mentioned the struggles that the Rams had defensively, and when I launched 40 Days, I was doing it essentially during the NFL playoffs. And one of the things I felt like watching the Rams, both in that NFC title game and towards the end of the regular season, we talked about it when I was on Maggie and Perloff as well, was it just felt like the defense took a massive step back. It felt like the Seahawks really could kind of do whatever they wanted offensively, and we saw that in both of those games. What exactly was this defense missing, and why does everything change now because Myles Garrett is now in the fold?
I think the defense was missing a guy that can close drives, right? And that's what Jared Verse kind of showed you in season one. This second season, he didn't show that as much and as consistently as needed. That's why Seattle was able to take advantage of that. They were just like, all right, like, we're able to, maybe chip this guy with a tight end or running back, and he's out of it, right? And like, this move is so great because now Byron Young can get one-on-ones on the outside. Now you can't double Kobe Turner, who has been a guy that's been facing a lot of doubles. Braden Fisk gets his opportunity. So that's why the move had to get made, because who was that guy that was making everyone better around them? They didn't really have that guy. And Jared Verse didn't take a step forward like many expected. Like 7 sacks, people were thinking maybe a 12-sack, 13-sack season for him to be that premier guy, and he just didn't show it. So when you can make a phone call to the Browns and say, can we possibly get Myles Garrett? And they're like, what are you guys willing to offer? You have to take that chance, because like I said, it's about this short window for this team. You have all this talent. You got the tight ends. You got the running backs. Yep. You got some receivers, right, on defense. That now you have the cornerbacks. The safety room isn't bad. Nate Landman and Omar Spates were able to show something last year. It's like, now if we just have one dominant pass rusher, we will be a complete team, and they went and got that, and that's why I believe this move had to be made.
I feel like the NFC West, and I said this last season during the season, even when a lot of folks maybe weren't sold on Seattle, is the best division in football. I know the Cardinals are ways away, but we consider how good the top 3 teams are and how well they're coached, which I think is a huge thing that kind of gets lost when we talk about how good divisions are. I think the NFC West is the best division. The Seahawks are the defending champs. Do you feel like with this move and the moves that the Rams have made, you mentioned McDuffie, do you feel like this is now the new favorite in the NFC West and maybe the favorite to win the Super Bowl at this point? Or do you still feel like the Seahawks right now are still number 1 until someone takes them off?
No, hey, they better be EJ. Like they traded everything,
Yeah.
right? You trade a first round pick to the Chiefs when to acquire McDuffie. Now you trading the first, second, and third, and you're losing JV. So you better be right. And they were so close. Matter of fact, if you think about the regular season, they were this close from having home field advantage, right? And then they were this close from making it to the Super Bowl. Now you make these moves to bring in an elite corner, the top ranked defensive guy and pass rusher. You better be the favorites going in. Of course, there's always the injury bug, right? We know that Puka plays with everything he has and he deals with injuries. Devontae Adams is older, he may deal with some nagging stuff. And then Matthew Stafford is the big wild card. You need him to stay healthy for this team to win. But if they are healthy and everybody else in the league is healthy, the Rams have everything you need. Like, if you're creating this team on Madden, this is how you want your team to look. You want to have the quarterback, the premier pass rusher, DBs, receiver. Like, they have everything. And they also have Sean McVay coaching this team. So I believe going into the season, they should be the favorites. And I know that McVay is ready to coach them up so that they can show the world that they should be everyone's favorite.
Last season, I feel like maybe not so much in LA. I think LA probably would agree with me, but I feel like in the national stage, I feel like I jumped out the window. I was right, but I ended up jumping out the window when I said I thought Matthew Stafford was the best quarterback in the NFL. I said I watch everybody play every week on Sundays, and this was midseason. I'm like, what that guy does and what he does on a consistent level, I just wasn't seeing from anybody, including Patrick Mahomes, given how the Chiefs' offense looked last season. And I thought he was the best quarterback, and he won MVP, and he looked like the best quarterback all season, which made the draft pick of Ty Simpson, as you mentioned earlier, very surprising to a lot of people. Because it's like, hey, you got the MVP, you got arguably the best quarterback, and you're a team that's that close, and you're drafting a quarterback. It seemed like maybe there was some disconnect with the pick. Sean McVay in that first press conference didn't seem all that happy. Then he said it had nothing to do with football with why I wasn't happy. It was something else, which I'm like, what else could be on your mind than the NFL draft or the NFL draft? But okay, sure, whatever. Like, do you feel like now, like with this move, does this kind of like put aside everything that happened with the Simpson pick, and does it now kind of, in many ways, kind of puts him on the back burner and allows him to grow in his own right without having so much pressure on him?
Yeah, I think that for Rams fans, now they can breathe a sigh of relief, right? Because after that pick, being there at the draft, so many fans are screaming, "What? Are we about to rebuild? Like, what is going on? Why do you take a guy like?" If you take a quarterback in the late 20s, it's like, all right, you have this luxury pick. But at 12, you're like, wait, something they're not telling us. So making this move, out here in LA with the Ram fans, it kind of felt like Luka to the Lakers, right? Out of nowhere, a move to where you're like, yo, like we can mean business now. And that's exactly how like Ram fans are feeling here in LA, is that, yo, we are actually going for this championship, and that's what makes the move so great. And then we just know that Myles Garrett is such a beast, a guy that was able to, when you can look great, EJ, on the Browns, you're somebody. So now with him coming to the Rams, around, talented players, I know he is going to feel like, yo, I'm a actual great organization that has some things going for them. And then there's that wild card of if he can somehow get AD to suit back up, that guy still looks great. When you go to the facility, he comes by there and you like, man, I say, AD, what you waiting for? But I know he's 35, but with this opportunity, he might want to take it.
Yeah, that's been a lot of the conversation is now he may be talking about coming back, and he certainly is now thinking about it. And you said it best. If anybody has seen Aaron Donald in person of late, I've been around the Super Bowl, so I've seen him walking around post his retirement when he has shown up. He looks like he could dominate the NFL today. It's crazy the kind of physical conditioning he's put himself in. Jared Verse jokes about how when he's worked out with Aaron Donald post his retirement, Jared Verse couldn't get through the workouts, and that's a guy who's young and should, in theory, be able to outwork a 34-year-old, whatever how it was when he was working out with him. But then, yes, he had his own issues as well. So, no, the Aaron Donald thing definitely makes this very enticing. Again, Mykell Mathieu joining me here. You can catch all of his work, the Misfits Live LA Sparks Weekly. He's writing for the Sporting Tribune. I got to get you on a Sparks question before we get out of here. We're still early in the WNBA season, but I think there was a lot of hope for the Sparks in terms of maybe making a playoff run. And what have you seen from the team thus far, and do you feel like they're meeting the early expectations of the season at this point?
So, EJ, they scared us here in LA during that home stretch to start the season, right? You get 4 straight games at home. You're like, all right, let's get this team off to a fast start, and you go 1-3, looking very similar to the teams that we've seen these last few years.
Yeah.
But then you go on a roll, you pick up 3 straight victories, right? I hated the loss to the Connecticut Sun. It was a bad loss, and for some reason the Sparks has had those type of defeats these past few years. But there's just something about this team that's different because you have Nneka Ogwumike, right? When Kelsey Plum is back healthy with the ankle, she is playing at an all-time high. De'Erica Hamby, who I like to call emergency contact, because whenever you need her, she is there and performs. Ray Burrell, which she's able to bring as that 3-and-D player, and Cameron Brink, right? If you guys come and check me out, LA Sparks Weekly, I'm someone that gives her a hard time because you were the number 2 pick. The Sparks could have chosen Angel Reese, right? And she's actually shutting me up a little bit this year, the way that she's playing. I think she's averaging like 9 points, 5 rebounds off the bench. We already know about her defensive skills, but offensively, she just looks more confident. She's knocking down the 3 ball. Erica Wheeler has been a great pickup for this team. Like, they're 4-4 right now. They got a big one tonight against the Aces, which they just knocked off on the road without Nneka. So I expected them to have a little growing pains because it's a lot of new faces together trying to mesh in into Lynn Roberts' offense, which is, up pace and different than some of the teams that these players came from. But it's the defensive end that they're starting to show that they can come in together, and that was their biggest problem last year. They couldn't stop a nosebleed. EJ, you know what that means. Shout out to Bart Scott out there.
I'm a Jets fan, and we in New York, so we definitely know what that means.
Yeah, man. So that was their issue, and they just look more competent on that end of the floor. So they're not a championship contending team, right? They're not those teams, but they look like a team that can legitimately get to possibly the 6th spot and be a tough team. Like, this team is only going to get better as the season go on if they can stay healthy, because they're such a new group together. But I like what I've seen, especially with the games on the road. Let's see what they do these next 3 games at home, today, Friday, and Sunday. If they can go at least 2-1, I'm going to feel very confident about the Sparks team going forward.
Mykell Mathieu, you're going to want to follow him. You obviously see how much he knows about his LA Sparks, LA Sparks Weekly, the Misfits Live, the Sporting Tribune, all things Los Angeles. Mykell's a man, great dude, great guy, and obviously great reporter. Mykell, thank you so much for joining me today on 40 Days and 40 Nights. 40 Days and Counting, actually. Not 40 Days and 40 Nights, 40 Days and Counting. Appreciate you, man.
Hey, no problem. Hey, Knicks and 6. I'm with you with that. Knicks and 6.
All right. Mykell, join the bandwagon. Knicks and 6. Let's go. That's what I want to hear, man. Thanks so much, brother.
Peace.
Oh, that's great, man. Shout out to Mykell. Great dude. And what I love about this space, and I don't know if I've gotten into it quite as much since 40 Days and Counting started. I had a lot of guests on 40 Days and 40 Nights. 40 Days and Counting, I'm doing a lot of other things, and sometimes rambling guests hasn't always been quite as easy. But I love, and I want this to continue being an aspect of this show, is you guys get introduced to voices, faces you haven't seen, people who are up and coming, and just like I feel like myself. It's kind of weird to call yourself up and coming, but I guess other people would say I'm up and coming. Whatever, that sounds pretentious too. There's no way to say it that's not pretentious. But just people who are grinding at this game, right? And who are extremely talented. And Mykell, someone I got to meet years ago, someone I followed, because I'm a nut. That's the one thing you'll learn about. You probably already know about me, but maybe I talked about it. Like, I'm an insane person when it comes to like trying to know who is who in sports media, and not just like who's like the people who are like the Stephen A. Smiths or whatever, right? Like, I actually also kind of like, what maybe other wrestlers will talk about. Like, I want to know who's the young talent that's coming up, and who are the young content creators, and who are the young people getting opportunities. And, Mykell, we both have a relationship with Rob Parker, of course, of Fox Sports Radio, longtime Fox Sports One analyst, and, of course, ESPN analyst. So I've seen Mykell's work for a while, and I just happenstance. It wasn't like an actual official introduction. It's happenstance. We ran into each other at NABJ, the National Association of Black Journalists, and we got to kick it. And he's just a good dude and a really, really sharp guy, as you can see. So I hadn't had an LA thing to do here in a little while, but as soon as the LA trade happened, I was like, oh, we got to get Mykell on. I'm happy we did, and he did a phenomenal job. And of course, make sure you follow his work. Again, you can catch him the Misfits Live, LA Sports Weekly, and the Sporting Tribune. Make sure you check out his work because he's doing awesome stuff. And just real quickly, wrapping a bow on that Myles Garrett trade. The price was high. No question. You get rid of Jared Verse, who's a cheaper, under your control, younger player. You give up future first, future second, future third. A lot of draft capital, but it feels like an Infinity Gem kind of ad. We know that meme when you got Thanos putting the Infinity Gem and going into like ultra mode because he has now gotten all the gems in the Infinity Gauntlet. That's kind of how I envision Les Snead or Sean McVay feeling in their offices when the Browns say, you know what, yep, we agree, we will give you Myles Garrett. Because holy crap, you want to talk about a seismic shift in the NFL. Myles Garrett, I think he's the best defensive player in the NFL. Of course, he set the sack record. He's been Defensive Player of the Year. But some people will argue, I like this guy, I like that guy. Myles Garrett is ridiculous. A guy with his strength, his athleticism, his game-wrecking ability, and the fact he did it for so many years in Cleveland with a defense that was good. I don't want to make it sound like he had no help on defense. But he never had help on offense. And to still be that impactful as long as he was. The guy was an absolute terror. And now you put him on a defense that, while Mykell was right, and I kind of teed it up for him, but their defense was just very meh last year, which was surprising because they were so good 2 years ago and they were so young, but they definitely took a step back. They definitely seem to have plenty of issues covering, and they've addressed that in the offseason, especially with the addition of Trent McDuffie. But they also seem to not consistently get after the passer, which was surprising because they had such really talented young pass rushers. And listen, maybe Jared Verse in year 3 would have been the double-digit sack guy that Mykell was saying that they needed. I have no doubts that Myles Garrett is going to have double-digit sacks. I have no doubt that Myles Garrett is going to be a force and to be reckoned with on that defensive line. So adding someone of that caliber, I think, does shift the dynamic in a major way. I probably would have told you that I would still lean Seahawks as the favorite coming out of the NFC and maybe to win the whole Super Bowl, just because they were the favorites and they won last year. I don't know how you don't say the Rams are the favorites right now. I'm just being honest. This is a defense that's complete. You got great weapons. You have the best quarterback in the NFL. This is a putting all of your chips to the table move in a major way, especially because they didn't draft a first-round pick this year that is going to help them, right? So this is not like, oh, if we struggle this year, well, next year, the guy that we drafted this year is going to be a rookie. He can improve. No. You got Trent McDuffie, who you traded one first-round pick for, and you got Ty Simpson, who's going to still be on the bench probably next year because Matthew Stafford signed an extension. We talked about that a couple weeks ago on 40 Days and Counting. So this is the team. This is the team, and in many ways, this is going to be the year for them for sure. But barring an injury, it's hard to not imagine the Rams as the team to beat, and certainly the NFC. And I've said the NFC has been varsity compared to the AFC's JV for a while rather. So I think you have to say they're the favorites in the NFL. I mean, what a move. You got to give credit to Sean McVay and Les Snead for going for it. I wanted you to hear some sound on this because the sound was interesting. Sometimes the sound isn't interesting, but in this case, the sound is interesting. It's not necessarily from LA, though we'll hear from Sean McVay. I promised that we would. I do want to hear from Andrew Berry because Berry kind of started this press conference. He's the general manager, president of the Browns. And he said, listen, I didn't have this on my bingo card. I was not going around shopping for Myles Garrett anywhere. This was an opportunity that came to us. There are very few teams that would make sense, and then we took it. But he was challenged as to, okay, you traded Myles Garrett. You got a pretty good package. Could you have gotten a better one? Let's ask the general manager of the Cleveland Browns.
he wasn't on the block, you weren't auctioning him off. If there have been reports that this was the only team that you seriously engaged in talks, why not open up the bidding and try to get a few more picks out of it?
That wasn't the goal. That wasn't the goal of Myles. And probably what I mentioned on the onset, if we were to trade Myles, it's a very narrow universe of deals that satisfy it. Everyone wants to have a Myles Garrett on their team, but not everyone can afford that acquisition cost in terms of players, picks and dollars. And so, that was not the intent of any of it.
I don't understand that answer. Now, to be fair, he's a general manager of an NFL team, and to quote my great friend Andrew Perloff, if a GM or a coach is opening their mouth, they're probably lying. So maybe he's just trying to get away from that answer, but asked why didn't you shop around Myles Garrett for a better trade? He said that wasn't our goal. I don't know about you. What general manager's number one goal when they're making a trade is not to find the best trade offer? I've never heard a general manager say that. In fact, I've heard general managers lie, knowing that they had better offers other places, but maybe a guy didn't want to go to another place and say, listen, we love the package we got, because that's how you get through this kind of thing. That answer doesn't really make a lot of sense. I'm sure it's going to have Cleveland Browns fans and Cleveland people in general very frustrated by that answer. The goal when you decided to trade Myles Garrett was not to see if other teams would give you a better offer than the Browns did. Then he kind of went into this thing, he's like, well, and he said it wasn't a goal for Myles, which also was like, what the hell does Myles have to do with this? Which then does lead me to, listen, was there a conversation where Myles Garrett said, do not send me to a team I don't want to go to? And or maybe he said, I really want to play for the Rams. Like, in there, I think he kind of sneaked it in and then kind of ran away and started talking about other things. In there, I think he maybe made it sound like he talked to Myles and said, hey, it's probably time to get you out of here. Our cap situation is hell because we got to keep Deshaun Watson and we can't pay you. Where do you want to go? And he said the Rams, and they said, okay. And then we'll go to the Rams. Let's hope they give us something comparable, something that we could accept and something we feel good about to our fans and to ourselves, and then we'll move forward. That's what that sounds like. That answer is terrible, though. If that's the case, I almost feel like I'd rather hear him say that. And it's like he wanted to say it, but then he kind of danced around it and then went to like, well, listen, not every team has a combination of picks, dollars, and talent to bring back. So then he kind of tried to then say, well, no, this was just the best offer. But you literally said you weren't trying to find the best offer. So what did you have? Well, you were psychic and you went into the brains of other general managers and said, oh, I know for a fact that the Cowboys won't offer me enough for Myles Garrett. Like, like what? How would you know that? Or like, maybe the salaries, maybe you can figure out just because you can see everybody's sheets and you know how much money everybody has. But you don't know what's in the general manager or president's or owner's head of another team to know whether or not they would have given you more for Myles Garrett. It kind of, well, on the surface, I think you could probably sell this to some reasonable Browns fans. I think a lot of Browns fans just in general are going to be pissed. This is the franchise player. He's probably a top 5 Browns player of all time. Like, you have to be, right? Like, I'm thinking Jim Brown, Ernie Davis, Joe Thomas. I assume Myles Garrett's in there. And you could argue he's better than Joe Thomas. And Joe Thomas is awesome and a Hall of Famer. But I have to assume Myles Garrett is up there. One of the greatest players that ever played in the Browns uniform. There's some people that just would never be happy that he left the Cleveland Browns. But I think reasonable fans will say, okay, listen, we stink. He's making a fortune, and we screwed up this Deshaun Watson thing, so we can't afford him. So, okay, we got a first-round pick, and we got a young star defensive end. I think you can call Jared Verse that. And we got future other future picks as well. It's not the worst haul in the world. It's still, though, just it feels nasty when you hear that comment that our goal was not to find the best trade for Myles Garrett. That feels like a disservice to the fans. It also feels like a slap in the face as well that this is the man that made the move, whether it was Jimmy Haslam pulling him, kicking and screaming, or whether he suggested Jimmy Haslam, whatever the case may be. And it's one of those things I don't know if we'll ever really know the truth. But his name is on the ledger for the deal that brought Deshaun Watson to the Browns. Deshaun Watson, with all the nasty that came with him off the court, off the field, and all the money that they guaranteed him and the trade compensation that they gave up, and they've gotten zilch in return when it comes to anything positive from the Deshaun Watson experience, both on and off the field. He hasn't had any issues off the field, but just the circus around him didn't help. And then he didn't play well. He stunk with the Cleveland Browns, and he's still there. They can't even move on. They kept saying, I think the owner literally said, I think you can say we're going to move on from this guy. And then they just did it, because there is no way to move on from this contract. It is fully guaranteed. No one's going to take it unless you cut him, and that's actually worse for your cap sheet if you cut him. So they're stuck. And it's just a nasty feel that the guy and the team and the ownership and the organization that made what essentially was that self-destructive move to trade for Deshaun Watson is the same front office that couldn't find a way to then build a team around both Watson and Myles Garrett, or once Watson blew up, then just Myles Garrett, and then was the team that in the group and the ownership and the front office and general manager that then was able to trade him and then tell you today, well, our goal wasn't to get the best package possible for Myles Garrett. That is a kick in the groin. That makes your stomach turn. That is the part of this for the Cleveland Browns that probably gives a lot of fans that feeling of hopelessness that nothing's ever going to change. This will always be the same for us. And now we're probably going back 3 steps backwards yet again to try to just get back to zero of being a normal NFL organization. That's the part of this that's probably tough for Cleveland Browns fans and for a lot of people who are upset today. The Myles Garrett, in theory, should have been allowed to retire a Cleveland Brown, and it sounded like as long as you paid him, he kind of would have just done it. Like he hemmed it hard several times. One time he requested a trade, then you gave him a ton of money, and then he shut up. Like it seems like he would have been fine staying there for the duration of his prime as long as you kept paying him very handsomely. Now again, I don't know, and to be clear, I have some sound. We'll hear from Sean McVay in a second. I don't know if there was anything said in this press conference from the Rams side that suggested that, Myles Garrett said, listen, I told him I ain't playing there no more. I don't know if that happened. If it did, then obviously things changed. But even besides that, forget about what he may have demanded. Like, just the generational talent that he was and is defensively and was for Cleveland. The fact that you couldn't find a way to put together a consistent winner, especially given how good that defense was. I don't know how those people still have jobs. I'll be real. I feel like Jimmy Haslam has Andrew Berry and those guys around, in part because he probably feels guilty that his hands are bloodied in this too. Like he may have co-signed, may have pushed for a lot of these terrible decisions that this front office has made. And now it's a rough day for the Browns fans. That Andrew Berry is gone. Andrew Berry being gone is probably a great day for Browns fans, and that day will probably come in the next year or so, in my opinion. But definitely a sad day to have Myles Garrett lead the city. It's already been a rough stretch. They went to the NBA Eastern Conference Finals and probably thought they had a chance to go to the NBA Finals, and got destroyed and got their city taken over, which they did not expect. And now Myles Garrett gets traded a week later. Not a fun time for Browns fans. Here was Andrew Berry, though, saying that, wow, Andrew, we lost a good player. We're getting a great one in Jared Verse as well.
He's obviously a huge part of this return for us. Jared is an outstanding football player. Former Defensive Rookie of the Year, 2-time original ballot Pro Bowler. He's a perfect DNA match for our attacking front. He's really a terror in both phases, both as a run defender and a pass rusher. And we are really, really excited to add him to our team. He allows us to continue to play defense as a high level, which has been our standard over the past several seasons. And we're really excited to welcome him into the organization.
And that's probably true, to be honest. Like, I think Jared Verse is really good. I thought last year, I think Mykell was right. I think it was a little underwhelming. Still very good. Still made the Pro Bowl, but a little underwhelming. But he's still a very good player. He's still very disruptive. I would assume that having him on the team means that the defense doesn't completely crater. A very good defense that has a lot of good pieces already probably doesn't crater. You got Denzel Ward, you got Schwarzenegger. Like they got good pieces defensively still. Verse is not nearly as disruptive and destructive as Myles Garrett. So I think in terms of how defenses prepare for the Browns, it's definitely going to be a much easier task, and they'll have a lot bigger shoes to fill and a bigger task and how to be consistent defensively, especially because I think their offense, especially this year, I don't think they really did much offensively in terms of the offseason of the draft to make me feel very excited about that side of the ball. I assume their offense is going to be terrible again. So the Browns could be in a position where they're going to be very bad again. That leads me to the last part of this. Apologies if you hear my dog in the background. I don't know what she's barking at. But the last thing I will say on the Browns part of this, before we hear from the Rams coach and Coach Sean McVay, this also feels like maybe this is the precursor to the Arch Manning tank. Yes, they also kind of couldn't afford Myles Garrett. That was real. But also, I just mentioned, their offense stinks. Their only chance to win games next year is to be very good defensively. Not even good, like great. They have to be great defensively. And they kind of had a chance to be with Myles Garrett still on the team. I don't think they could have still been a good team, but they had a chance to still be great defensively. Obviously, your chances fall in a major way when you lose a player that the caliber of Myles Garrett, even if you replace him with someone like Jared Verse. Which is why I look at this team and this trade and know what about this upcoming draft where you have all of these quarterbacks, and we know how much Jimmy Haslam has a relationship with the Manning family, and we know some of the whispers about how much Jimmy Haslam may be salivating at the opportunity to draft Arch Manning. Probably the biggest impediment to a Browns tank is Myles Garrett greatness. That's the truth. So you get Myles Garrett out the door, you would think that makes it a lot easier to lose enough football games you need to lose to put yourself in a position to draft Arch Manning. The reality also is you don't have to be the number one pick to certainly get a top quarterback in this draft. You could be probably in the top 3 or 4 and get a really high-end quarterback. This is a loaded draft class. Dare I say you might not need to be the number one pick also to get Arch Manning? I think Arch Manning played really well in the second half of the season. He played better as the season went on. I think his sophomore, what was it? I guess it's technically his junior year. Let's be real. A lot of it was he played really good at the end, but it took him a while to get his feet underneath him. He struggled for a lot of it. He seemed to struggle with his accuracy, struggle with consistency, with easy throws. I'm not sold he's the number one pick next year. I'm not. He could be. If he plays much better than he did last year, then yes. But if he's the same player that he was this year, I know all those NFL scouts are like, oh, don't worry. He left. He would have been the number one pick. Bull crap. I don't believe that. I don't think that they would have drafted Fernando Mendoza. They would have drafted him over Fernando Mendoza. I don't believe it. I watched both of them play. Fernando Mendoza was a much better quarterback last season. And I think anybody who made that pick there would have been a lot of people who would have said, yeah, sure, because it's Arch Manning in the last name. But there are a lot of people that would have really raised eyebrows. Like the Heisman Trophy winner, the guy that won the national championship, tell me the guy that couldn't get to the college football playoff was a better quarterback last year. He wasn't. So I'm not convinced you even have to get the number one pick. But my point being is, if you trade Myles Garrett, it puts you back. They already were in the basement, but now you're kind of cemented in being in the basement of the NFL, which will allow you an opportunity to draft Arch Manning, potentially number one, or any of these top quarterbacks number one. So I think that's a big thing from the Browns side of this. Let's hear from Sean McVay. And one of the things that he mentioned, and one of the things that you saw Mykell mention, was the possibility of Aaron Donald returning, which, again, only sounds crazy if you have not seen Myles Garrett lately. I have, both on camera and in person. He looks like he can play tomorrow. The physical fitness of this man is uncanny. It's why he's one of the great expensive players who ever played in the game. Now, I understand it's in the NFL. I understand it's football. I understand being a workout warrior is different than playing in the NFL. But it does feel like if anybody can do it, Aaron Donald can. Here was Sean McVay when he was asked about the possibility of Aaron Donald coming back and just how effective would he be.
Here's what I would tell you guys overall, too, is, Aaron's a guy that I stay really close in touch with, and I know the respect that he has for Myles. Talk to him about the opportunity to be able to bring him on board. If Aaron decides he wants to dust him off at the age of 35, I bet you he could still do it at a pretty high clip.
So, wasn't I denial? Seeing, I was expecting and to be clear, I did cut it off a little bit. He started with being like, listen, you guys probably have a better idea about how willing Aaron. I keep calling them Myles because, to be honest, they're kind of like similar in my head. Like they're both these physical freaks and these like men that seem to be built out of granite. Like they look like Greek gods. So I keep kind of mixing their names up. But no, with Aaron Donald, like he kind of started with like, oh, you guys probably have a better idea about what Aaron's thinking than I would. But I do talk to him, and if he wanted to play, he'd probably be great. And I'm like, not a great denial. Typically, you see the guy be like, oh, listen, we're not thinking about that. We're here to talk about Myles Garrett and what we can do here. And he did not shy away from that, which makes me really wonder if Aaron Donald may come back, which would be a crazy story. But then he did add in the second part of his answer, say, listen, if we are going to focus on Myles Garrett, we know that while we made a big move that we're really excited about, we must remain focused and that nothing is going to be given to the Rams this season.
You know, the one thing that's great about Myles, we're not going to ask him to do anything other than be himself and take it a day at a time, be totally and completely present. The last time, you guys remember who the Super Bowl favorites were last season, right? No, you don't. Nobody remembers, okay? So the point I'm making is like, hey, it's a fun narrative right now, but we're going to be inside out. We're going to earn it every single day. We had our first 11 on 11 today, and there's a lot of growth that we need to be able to have as a football team. And we're excited to get him in here, learning the different things that we'll ask of him. But we believe that he can impact the team in a significant way by being himself.
And I think he will. I'm telling you, I think if there's anything that could potentially trip this team up, it's just that it's not, for a team that was so young. Ironically, it has quickly kind of become an older team. Myles Garrett's not old, but he's in the prime of his career. He's certainly not young, I would say. Matthew Stafford obviously isn't young, but it's a team that also has Devontae Adams out on the outside as their number 2 receiver. He's certainly not young. It's a team that has gotten, for a team that was so upstart and so young in so many spots, it's now not as young. It's not old per se. Like Trent McDuffie's not old, but he's in the prime of his career. But it's not a team that's super, super young. They have some guys that have some tread on the tires. So that would be the thing, because it's football. Anybody can get hurt. If you're a little older, you're more likely to get hurt. Otherwise, I think it's a tough division. If that kind of makes the record not look as dominant as maybe the team actually is, that's fine. You tell me this is still an 11-win team or a 12-win team as opposed to a 13 or 14 or 15-win team because of the fact that they had to face 2 really good teams in their division in the Niners and the Seahawks, the defending champs. Okay, I can see that. I would still feel very good as long as they're healthy in picking the Rams to still win the Super Bowl, even if they don't put together the gaudy regular season record because of the competition of the NFC West and NFC as a whole. This is a complete team. This is a loaded team. What a move by the Rams here. Staying with the NFL. Big week in the NFL. Big few days in the NFL. It's weird that you have a star wide receiver, one who won a Super Bowl, get traded. And it's like still kind of secondary. A lot of it's because of the circumstances. A lot of it because it was expected. But it's official. A.J. Brown is no longer a Philadelphia Eagle. He has joined the New England Patriots. He was sent to New England in a trade that included a future first and a future third. And this is it. This is the end of the A.J. Brown era in New England, and it should be in Philly. The long-expected A.J. Brown era in New England now begins. This is one that people have been expecting for a while now. I think from this standpoint, from an Eagles standpoint, this kind of had to be done. Shout out to the afternoon drive show on WIP. I actually was listening to them last week. My mentor, Spike Eskin, Ike Reese, Jack Fritz, awesome trios, guys, and great talents. And they were talking about just how long could this AJ thing move on, and because there was reporting, I think it was from Tom Pelissero or Mike Garafolo. I don't mean to mix them both up. Forgive me if it's not either one of them. And forgive me if I mixed up one with the other. But there was reporting last week that there was a chance that maybe they weren't in a they didn't look at June 1st as some deadline. It wasn't June 1st comes, now we have to trade AJ Brown. That's not how they looked at it. They apparently looked at it as the beginning of what could be trade negotiations. Which the conversation began, like, is it possible this guy could be on the team in training camp? And then the whole team was like, that seems implausible, because that would be a nightmare. Like, the last thing you want in training camp is the distraction of, like, hey, why is this guy still here when he's supposed to be traded weeks ago and you're still trying to trade him? That would be terrible. And they never came to that, as we saw. As soon as June 1st came, the date that the contract and the money and all those things wouldn't be as punitive against the Eagles, they got A.J. Brown's ass out of there. And it had to end this way. They drafted his replacement in Mykell Mathieu. Different kind of player, but he's a receiver and a guy that they're going to plan to use a lot more. This is also, I think, an offense that grew tired of A.J. Brown complaining about targets and using targets as his litmus for how well the offense was doing, which is, I think, fair, especially when you won at the level the Eagles won. Now, the Eagles' offense wasn't great, and they had struggles, especially in the passing game, so sometimes you could say, listen, like, even if they're winning, maybe there are issues that they need to address if A.J. Brown isn't able to be as a factor in the game. But he was becoming too disruptive, and it seemed like every week there needed to be some kind of powwow or some kind of long conversation with him, or him having to explain his comments in the media during the week or after the game, or why he looked at Jalen Hurts this way, or why was he reading a book. It always seemed to be something. And when it came down to what's his issue, he kept saying, well, listen, if I'm not involved in the game, I don't feel like we're playing well. It's like, they're like, we won by 15 points, or we won this game, or we won that game. Like, what are you talking about? You couldn't continue that. In many ways, I think the only reason why he was still on the team was because they won a Super Bowl. I think had they not won a Super Bowl the year before, he would have been traded. They won, so they're like, well, we can't trade our best receiver after we win a Super Bowl. That would look really weird. And I think A.J. Brown's probably, God damn, now I got to stay here another year because we won the Super Bowl. He probably wanted to go somewhere where he can get numbers and stuff. So for the Eagles, I think they had to move on. I think that the compensation they got for him was really good. And shout out to my guy Rod DeRay. I know he was listening, watching in the comments. We were going back and forth about not AJ. They would get number one for AJ. I was not sold they would. They did, which means Howie Roseman did a bang-up job, in my opinion, because Brown's still really good. But I think that's what he is. I think he's really good. I don't look at him as a high-end number one receiver. I think he's probably a mid to low-end number one receiver. He's still, still got the size and strength that would make him a challenge. He's still really fast. But he does not necessarily possess, to me, the same dominant traits he had 2 or 3 years ago when he first got to Philadelphia. And you saw the production dip. And I don't think it was only on the offense. Like, famously in that last game, his last game as an Eagle, there was clamps on him for most of the game. And then when they throw him the ball with the game on the line, he's dropping the ball left and right. So he just did not have the same impact consistently that I'm used to seeing from A.J. Brown. Now, he's going to use the doubts and people that are saying stuff about him, and he's going to use that as fuel. He could end up going on and having an awesome year for the Patriots this year. And the Patriots need him. Listen, whether he's a low-end number one or mid-end number one, he is the caliber receiver that the Patriots need. They just did not have anybody that was a threat on the outside in a serious way. The AFC was not serious, so therefore they were able to get to a Super Bowl with that. But once they faced their real team with their real secondary and a real pass rush, their passing offense was zero. They couldn't move the ball against the Seahawks. So A.J. Brown will be welcome for them. Here's what I will say as the drawback potentially for the Patriots. Talent, even the compensation, which was a little rich, I think you take the risk. I don't have a problem with that as much. I think sometimes there is questions about when you put, of course, as I say this right when a cop car goes by, a lot of random noises today. Mrs. Softy, cop car, Lita, anyway. No, but I think sometimes when you take a star veteran receiver, especially one that may be on the decline, and you give them a kind of young, impressionable quarterback, you can, while making their life easier and giving them a high-end talent, help them, you can also create some dangerous habits and some awkward conversations as that receiver continues to decline about that guy's role in the offense. And I've seen this happen too often in the NFL to not point it out. what happened when Terrell Owens first got to Dallas? It was great. He was still good, even though he was declining. Tony Romo was a star. He was throwing the ball all the time, and everything was great. It seemed like everything was great. He literally was crying over his quarterback when they lost. He started to decline just a little bit. Questions about how many targets he gets. Questions about, is Jason Witten getting too many targets? And then what's that relationship about? Why does it seem like he's piling around with Jason Witten so much? And we saw, like with T.O., he eventually turns on almost every quarterback. And that whole Cowboy situation fell apart. We've seen this time and time again. We saw Randy Moss in New England. And that was different because, Tom Brady wasn't young and impressionable, but it was great until the Patriots started to expand their offense beyond Randy Moss. And when Randy Moss wanted to get paid, then he started acting like Randy Moss, And he's a legend. And, of course, we love Randy, and we hope he's doing well with his health and stuff. But we know what Randy Moss was in terms of how much of a malcontent he could be when he wasn't happy. There are a lot of instances of sometimes pairing young, hotshot quarterback with star, but slightly declining receiver, and the returns not being nearly as great as you would expect. It's something I worry about with this dynamic in New England, because they needed A.J. Brown, but they also, I thought, a strength of the Patriots was that they kind of had everybody's kind of offense. And Stephon Diggs, even though he was kind of a wild card, he wasn't good enough to really become a malcontent there. So he really wasn't going to complain only so much. They were winning so much that he really couldn't complain. That, as we know, winning is not going to stop A.J. Brown from complaining. And the bad habits I mentioned also is sometimes you'll see quarterbacks, because they have that new weapon, get kind of tunnel vision and feel like, I got to throw it to AJ because he's so great and he's so talented and he's the best guy I got. And this is why they brought him here, to get volume of targets. And it's going to be in Drake May's head that this guy gets upset if he doesn't get targets. And I just would caution Patriots fans in terms of just how well this is going to go, is I do hope AJ has matured. He's going to get more targets. He's going to be more impactful in this offense, most likely, because they just don't have Devontae Smith on the other side. I think they have a better natural thrower than Jalen Hurts is. I don't know if he's a better winner or a better quarterback, but he's a better natural thrower for sure in Drake May. So they'll have a better passing offense. A.J. Brown will probably be happier. Will the Patriots be a better team? And will A.J. Brown be willing to play within the team concept once teams do what they're going to do, which is they're going to try to take him away completely? Will Drake May be smart enough to still use those other weapons? Will he force it to A.J. Brown? Will A.J. Brown allow him not to force it to him and to throw it to other guys? These are just real questions that I've seen happen too often in the NFL. Not to bring them up for the Patriots. It doesn't mean the Patriots shouldn't have made the move. It doesn't mean the Patriots shouldn't feel good that they finally have a number one receiver. They needed one. But if you're saying Patriots back to the Super Bowl because of this move, I pump the brakes on that. I really would. I wonder, maybe Drake May's overall numbers are better, but I bet you he's not second in MVP voting this year. I bet you his picks go up, and I bet you that just the pathway through the AFC is a lot harder, which it always is for the team that loses in the Super Bowl, whether you're in NFC or AFC. It's going to be interesting to watch this stuff. The other last thing about this too is it was interesting how A.J. Brown really at this point, that whole issue with Jalen Hurts. First of all, I'm glad we're past it. I saw I forgot who it was, one of the offensive linemen on the Eagles. Thank God this thing was over. Even they had enough of the A.J. Brown drama. But he said that, this was an interview with, I don't have the sound, but it was an interview with Maria Taylor for 7 p.m. in Brooklyn, that him and Jalen Hurts grew apart. Nothing actually happened, but they just stopped becoming friends while they were on the team. And, A.J. Brown got married this summer, or now for him, it's technically, not for him, it's everybody. It's still spring, but it feels like summer. He got married this spring, so congratulations to him, by the way. You get married and you go to the team you want. Seems like a win-win. But he said, listen, the relationship, it wasn't the same from when I first got there. People grow apart. It is what it is. He confirmed that there was something that changed. He didn't say that it was a bad thing or a wrong thing, but I don't think it's a good thing if the quarterback and wide receiver were best friends and suddenly that they're not. And he can say it wasn't an issue, but that sounds like an issue to me. It sounds like it's been an issue in Philadelphia. So I'll be curious, what this means for Jalen Hurts moving forward, too. Because Jalen Hurts, I think, also played that game that Drake May is going to have to play a little bit. I think he played it correctly, even if it meant he lost a friend and his number one receiver in just trying to run the offense as best as he could, and it meant spreading the ball around. But, when he didn't throw the ball to A.J. Brown enough, the friendship was destroyed, clearly. Or at least that's what, on the surface, it looks like. I think there's a chance that Hurts is better for this now that he won't have that game of, if I don't throw it to A.J. Brown, well, I have to have a 3-hour meeting with Saquon Barkley as a peacemaker to talk about what's going on with the team and how we're doing. He doesn't have that anymore. By all accounts, I don't think that, Dallas Goedert and Devontae Smith are that disruptive. Mykell Lemon is a rookie. I don't know if he's disruptive. I don't think he will be, but we'll have to see. I can't imagine he'll be more disruptive than what A.J. Brown has been. So I'll be fascinated to see for Jalen Hurts how this improves his game. I'll go bold and say that Jalen Hurts has one of his best passing seasons without A.J. Brown. Without that headache, without the pressure of having to throw in the ball, they have other good receivers and other talented pass catchers, and they have a great running back still in Saquon Barkley. Watch for Jalen Hurts to have a better season this year than he had last year, because the headache and circus around A.J. Brown will be gone. And the Eagles will actually be able to function like a normal offense, one that will be, I think, way better equipped with their new offensive coordinator to move forward than they were last year when Kevin Patullo was way over his head. Just a kind of a parting thought on that. And real quickly, Mike Vrabel asked about what happened in Philadelphia, basically said he's not worried about A.J. Brown bringing drama from Philly to New England.
Again, whatever happens or comes up, I think that I can't say that there's not going to be things that come up with A.J., with any single player, right? I think that this is a competitive game, highly competitive. Players want to win. Players want to do everything that they can to help their team. They want to make sure that people are on the right page. So I don't get into a lot of that. I think that what's the most important is that those things don't carry into the locker room, that they get handled. And you see that all the time on the sidelines. We want to have conversations in a meeting room. We want to have conversations at practice.
So, it sounds good. It's easy to say now. I'm not concerned about it. AJ just has been very unpredictable. So you can say you're not concerned about it now, which I understand. But for all the protocols and all the ways in which you want to mitigate distractions, it doesn't become an issue until you actually face it front on. But once again, Mike Vrabel saying that what happened with Brown and Philly to him is irrelevant.
Again, I don't know what happened. I'm not trying to figure out what happened in Philadelphia. I'm trying to focus on what's going to happen here, and trying to get him acclimated.
And what's important about this acclimation process for A.J. Brown is the relationship he has with Mike Vrabel. Mike Vrabel mentioned in the offseason that he still talks to A.J. Brown, and he's proud of the player and person A.J. Brown has become. I think in many ways A.J. Brown has gotten a bad rap. I think it may sound harsh how I'm speaking about him, but I think I'm speaking plainly and honestly about him. I don't think he's a bad person. And in fact, I've actually defended his right to want to go someplace where he can have more individual success. To me, once you've won a championship, I think kind of like hand-wringing a guy for wanting to be more involved. Now, if he was on my team, I would lose it. I would understand. I'm not putting Eagles fans in this category. I'm talking about people outside the NFL that sometimes will get very sanctimonious about a player like A.J. Brown or anybody who has a character where it's like, oh, he cares more about his stats than winning. I'm like, well, he's won a championship. He's made all the sacrifices, done all the things. Even if he did it kicking extremely, which he kind of did. But he did all the sacrifices. He did everything he needed to do, and he won a title. That is the ultimate goal. That's the ultimate team goal. That's what every kid wants to do, you would think, coming up playing sports, especially playing football, obviously, to win a Super Bowl. He did that. Once you've done that, and you have still plenty of more time in your career to do whatever you want to do. Now, I don't know if I want this guy on my team if I'm winning a Super Bowl, but I think it's fully within that player's right to say, I'd prefer to play somewhere where I'm going to be more of a focal point. Like, I have individual goals I still want to do. I may be going to a team that's slightly worse, and that's all the Patriots are probably. Is slightly worse. They're a very good team. He's not going to like the Jets or someplace like that. Like, I may go to a team that's maybe not as like built to win a Super Bowl as the Eagles are right now, but I have a chance to have more individual success. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I really don't. Like, in every facet of work life, like, this is a job at the end of the day. And in every facet of work life, if someone has individual goals they want to meet that they can't meet at their current job, and they've done all they can do in terms of meeting the job's team goals, I think that nobody would look at that person crazy saying, oh, they want a new challenge. They want to find something somewhere else. In fact, coaches do that all the time, you know. And I'm not even talking about the guy that leaps to like a bigger job in like college football. I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about, like, you know, it's a bad example, but like Larry Brown, like leaving the Pistons to go coach the Knicks. Like, you could look at it and be like, how could Larry Brown leave a championship team and a team that went to the finals 2 years in a row? Like, clearly he doesn't care about what's important. It's like, he wanted to coach the Knicks. He wanted to coach his hometown team. He wanted to make them into a winner. Yes, it was going to be a lot harder to win there, but like, he did it because his individual pride and his individual goals as a coach were like, he won the championship. His goal wasn't to win as many championships as possible as an individual. Once you're coaching, you always want to, but that's not his individual goal. And that's totally fine. It's like, we didn't look at Larry Brown, again, unless you're a Pistons fan, and say, oh, like, how dare he doesn't care about winning. We didn't say he was an idiot. We may say you were dumb to go to the Knicks in that climate, working for Isaiah Thomas and that version of James Dolan. But, like, most people are like, yeah, we get it. It's New York. He's from there. It's a dream job. Yeah, let's see if it works. Like, I think people were just interested. And there's so many examples of coaches doing that kind of thing. That's how I think the players shouldn't necessarily be held to a different standard because they're players. Like, I never ascribe to that if it's not a player playing for my team. Now, if it's playing for my team, selfishly, again, if I'm an Eagle fan, I want AJ Brown to be on the team and be fully invested in the team goals. Like, that's how I would feel if he was on my team. But on the outside, looking in, you win a championship, he probably will have a decent case for the Hall of Fame as long as he continues to put up good individual numbers. Go be great somewhere else. Like, but the problem, though, I have no problem with AJ Brown. The only problem, though, becomes, what is your outlook for the Patriots? And then my question then rises, how great is AJ Brown still? It's not about a question of good. He's still good. But how great is he still? And if there comes a situation where the team has to not just force feed him or like prioritize his targets and his targets only, how will he accept that? Because he literally left a winning team to go somewhere else that will throw him the ball more. It's a question that I feel a little wary about, especially dealing with a young quarterback. Last thing, man, before we get out of there, very fascinating story out of New England and Philly. Fascinating story out of Cleveland and LA. Two major trades. We'll be live again, 40 days and counting, Tuesday. Of course, today is Tuesday. We'll be live again Friday, 8 a.m. We do our morning show on Friday, so I'm sure there'll be more fallout from both the A.J. Brown trade and the Myles Garrett trade. But to end on a lighter note, not that it was heavy stories, but they were big stories, and I was like, we need a lighter story to kind of end this show. I didn't want to just end it on a huge trade. I do want to talk about something that is near and dear to my heart. Sports uniforms. I definitely think I've mentioned this on 40 Days and Counting or 40 Days and 40 Nights, that one of the weird quirks about me as a sports fan is I care far too much about sports uniforms. Teams that change uniforms, throwback uniforms, how they look. I don't know. It's a weird obsession. One of my all-time favorite interviews I've ever done was with Paul Lucas, who did the Uni Watch blog, where he would do like very hyper in-depth breakdowns of team uniforms in all pro sports, how they would change from year to year, teams that obviously rebranded, and he was a historian when it came to team uniforms. It was a very popular blog, so much so that ESPN kind of adopted it and made it a part of ESPN.com for a while. Paul Lucas, by the way, first of all, obviously he's a legend, but also very nice guy. It was very gracious. I think he was surprised at how much I was like a fan. He was like, "Oh, you really read my stuff." I'm like, "I read you anytime you come up on ESPN.com." Like I was a huge fan of Paul Lucas, so I love it. I love uniforms. And if you've heard me do the show, or you've heard me on Maggie and Perloff, or maybe even on WFAN. By the way, I will be on again this weekend, Saturday, midnight to 5 a.m. Really Saturday into Sunday. Saturday night into Sunday morning, overnight. By the way, your boy live on WFAN, 12 midnight to 5 a.m. Sunday morning. The thing that I've said that I think still holds true, and I'll stick with the NBA version for now, is if every NBA team went back to what they were wearing, obviously these are teams that are currently still playing. Some teams are new, some teams are in the same city, right? There's different things, but walk with me. If every team went back to what they wore in the NBA, I would say in 1995, every fan base would be happy. Now, we have to figure out like what the Pelicans do. We have to figure out some things, but for the most part, every fan base would be happy if every team wore what they wore in 1995. I think in the NFL, I always push it back a decade. If every team went back to their logo, color scheme, and jerseys from 1985, every fan base would be happy. You know why I know that? Because anytime when I watch an NFL game and the Bucs are wearing their creamsicle uniforms, or the Seahawks are wearing their throwbacks, or the Broncos are wearing their throwbacks, all of their fans say the same thing. Why aren't these our uniforms? Why are we messing around and with these new uniforms that are new and minimalist and postmodern and overall have no soul? Why don't we just wear what we did 20 years ago, 30 years ago, and we'd be fine? And it's the same thing in the NBA. These teams that have gone to throwback uniforms or throwback-inspired uniforms in recent years, they've been met with rave reviews and fans saying, why isn't this team wearing these as their uniform? Why isn't this their logo? Why isn't their color scheme? And I think one of the teams that went through a recent rebrand that was probably one of the most failed rebrands in all of sports was the Minnesota Timberwolves. And it's weird because they got really good during the rebrand. That's what's unfortunate. When you get really good and your rebrand sucks, like it's like, oh man, we're not capitalizing on like new merch, new gear, new jerseys, because people don't want to buy these jerseys. They stink. Like the Minnesota Timberwolves uniforms. And I'll be honest, I was one of those folks that kind of was defending the uniform when it first came out. But as years are going on, you kind of see it stinks. It's just not good. I don't know what they were thinking when they made those uniforms. The uniforms they had, the KG era uniforms that then became the Kevin Love era uniforms for a little bit, they were so good. Now I think they needed an upgrade, but they went to something that was just so far left and just not fun at all. They have now announced that they have new uniforms. Well, at least they didn't announce it yet. The announcement's coming. I think the official announcement will be next Monday, I want to say, when they officially drop this. But, man, I look at what the T-Wolves are expecting to unveil next week because their uniforms have leaked. By all accounts, these seem real. And we've seen some leaked renderings of the logo, which looks very inspired in the 90s. And now we've seen the uniforms. It once again confirms what I keep saying, is that every team should just go back to what they wore in the 90s, and everybody would be okay with it in the NBA. Because look at these. How can you not tell me that is not a major, major upgrade over the uniforms that the T-Wolves currently have? This is essentially your Christian Laettner, Cherokee Parks, rookie year Kevin Garnett, the royal-ish blue with the popping green and white color scheme. It's just a winner. It's basically kind of the original look that the Wolves had when they were an expansion team in the early 90s, and they obviously just came about in the NBA. This is gorgeous. Give them a round of applause. Will some fans nitpick, and are some fans nitpicking some things about how it's not exactly the same from the 90s? Yes, because like you can't. I don't think you're actually allowed to just wear your old uniforms again. I don't think you're allowed to do that. You can get very close, and this is pretty close. If you pull up old pictures of the Wolves from the mid to early 90s, this is kind of what it looked like. You can't do like a 1-for-1, but they kind of got close. And I think these look great. These are going to be the home whites, which I think are essentially, I think they're technically called the association uniforms, which don't get me started on that whole Nike thing. But these are the home whites. The road uniform. Look at that. I mean, that's a great look. A legitimate great look. Great uniform. Again, the royalish blue, green pops. Love the font on the Wolves. Big upgrade from what they've been wearing for the last few years. And then for the alternate city, this is not the city, this is a statement uniform, which is kind of the third official uniform that they'll wear. They then got inspired by the late 90s, early 2000s Wolves, and then came out with this. Really good. Probably my least favorite of the two, because this one is probably not as close to the late 90s, early 2000s Wolves look that they went with. But in the black uniforms, they wore these uniforms throughout the playoffs, because the one other tell about this whole thing with the Minnesota Timberwolves is how often they will wear their throwback uniforms during the playoffs. I think they wore their throwback uniforms every home game this postseason. And the white ones, I think they wore almost every home game 2 years ago. And that was the white ones that look kind of like the ones that they're changing to, these right here. It showed you that, their uniforms stink. And they know they stink. So, fans like the old uniforms. It's a great look. Just wear these and just whatever. Just pretend like we don't have other regular uniforms that aren't great. The Cavs this year. How often did the Cavs? I know I said the 90s, but this was going back to the mid-2000s. During this postseason run, how often did they wear their, LeBron James era, one of the best uniforms of all time? The midnight navy blue with the, it's not striped. I guess checkered is best called. The blue, gold, and red checkered, piping on the jersey and shorts. One of the best uniforms of all time. So instead of wearing their boring, lame current uniforms, they just wore those almost every game, and it was great. Nobody complained except for some that were like, "Oh, why are the Cavs wearing blue at home?" I'm like, first of all, that team wore that blue uniform a lot at home, even back then. Number one. Number two, you really want to see those Cavs ugly ass home uniforms? No, you don't. Get out of here with that. But nonetheless, just like the Cavs this year, just like the Wolves this year, they've seen and they know that their best looks are their throwback looks. So I commend this T-Wolves for understanding what I've known for a while, and I think fans are getting hip to, is that most of these NBA teams should be going back to probably inspired looks from the past. The Suns recently did it, and I think the Suns uniforms look really good. I think they could have went even further to look like the 90s Suns with Charles Barkley and Kevin Johnson. Now the T-Wolves did it. They look great. I can't wait to see the full unveil next week, and I can't wait to see these uniforms in action. I think they're gonna look awesome. I implore almost every NBA team to do this. The team who most needs this kind of inspiration? The Brooklyn Nets. The Nets thought they were doing something interesting and something cutting edge by coming out in just black and white, and I got what they were going for. And I didn't hate the rebrand, but once again, the Nets going to some of those New Jersey era uniforms has been a win anytime they've worn them as throwback uniforms. Go back to that. I'm not saying go back to New Jersey. I know some fans think that they should. I know the governor, Mickey Sherrill, wants them to. I actually don't think that's best for the organization. They will never be anything in New York City, but just being in New York City and being in Brooklyn means they're going to make a lot of money. So I think if they go to New Jersey, they will not make as much money, so therefore it's not best for the organization. Even if they would have a much more loyal fan base in New Jersey. But all that being said, the Nets brand, it's nothing. It's just zero. And the fact that they don't have, they took themselves very seriously, and that's kind of on purpose, because they wanted to come in and take over a city. And it's a tall thing to do. So you have to take yourself very seriously. And now that they haven't, and the Knicks have become championship contenders, and the Knicks have fully, they never lost the city, but there's nothing with the Nets in terms of making any inroads. Your best option to bring back that, to differentiate yourself from the Knicks, is to try to be as fun as possible. There's nothing fun about how Barclays looks on the inside. There's nothing fun about the brand. There's nothing fun about the logo. There's nothing fun about the uniforms or the color scheme. I tell you what, like, royal blue and red is a lot of fun. Even navy blue and, like, silver can be fun. Like, and that's what they wore during the Jason Kidd, Stephon Marbury era. Like, there's fun to be had with some of the Nets' earlier looks and color schemes. I would implore the Nets to reconsider changing their entire brand, because this brand also right now is associated with losing and disappointment and not meeting expectations. That is all that Nets brand has come with. I'm not here to either the Nets. That's not what I was doing. I'm actually trying to help. I really think that the Nets would be in a not a much better situation, because, you know, the reality is they're the Nets in New York. It's a tough thing. But, oh my God, I just think their brand would breathe oxygen that's much needed to that franchise if they just stripped away all the black and white and the darkness of Barclays. I think one of the things that has helped the Mets branding has always been that the Mets have branded themselves, even if there's been a lot of misery. They've never taken themselves as seriously as the Yankees. In fact, so much so that sometimes it's actually pissed off Mets fans. But they are vibrant blue and orange colors. It's a lot more of it's a way less corporate feel around the team. Like, they knew that they couldn't be the Yankees. It wouldn't have worked. They had to be for everybody, because they literally were trying to recruit fans that lost their teams in both Brooklyn with the Dodgers and in Uptown with the New York Giants in the Polo Grounds. Like, they knew they had to invite people and entice them to be a part of their team. Like, it wasn't just a given. So they played up being a fun team with fun colors and a much more homey kind of vibe, and it's something that is stuck, and it's why the Mets brand is still very distinct from the Yankee brand. Forget about winning. I know Yankee fans, because we won. I know that. Forget about the winning. I'm talking about just the actual brand. The Mets brand has worked, even though the Yankees had a chokehold on the city. It's the same thing with, I think, the Nets brand. Like, the Nets, I don't think they'll ever be as big as the Mets, but I think they've made a mistake in trying to take themselves too seriously. Lighten up. T-Wolves, I think, give you a great blueprint. Their uniforms look awesome. I've seen some renderings of the new logo, which is very similar to the old logo. Looks awesome, way better than this other logo that's very forgettable. Major shout out to the T-Wolves. Awesome rebrand. Can't wait to see what else they got in store in terms of gear. If you're a T-Wolves fan, you're from Minnesota, I think you're very lucky. That's the show, man. This was a lot of fun. I want to thank you guys so much for checking out this edition of 40 Days and Counting. Many thanks to have on today's show, or give out rather on today's show. First, we got to give a big shout out to my guy, David Shepard. Really awesome for him to come on, talk about the NBA Finals. Of course, you want to catch him on NBA SiriusXM radio. That is where he does a show, like he said, with Sam Mitchell, former NBA Coach of the Year. Shep's an awesome host. Sam's one of the funnier characters that we have in sports media, so that's a great show to watch, or listen to, rather. So make sure you go support my guy, David Shepard. He was awesome talking about the NBA Finals. Also, be sure you guys support my guy, Mykell Mathieu. Again, awesome dude. Really talented sports reporter, content creator, covering all things LA sports. You want to hear content. We didn't even get to know Lakers stuff, but man, you want to hear stuff on the Lakers. We saw how much he knew about the LA Sparks. You want to hear, obviously, Ram stuff, which is what we talked about for the most part today because of the Myles Garrett trade. He'll get into the Chargers stuff as well. He is someone you're going to want to follow. He's a star in this game. And a big thanks to Mykell Mathieu for coming on this show. So big thanks to them. Big thanks to you guys, the viewers and watchers and people listening on the podcast. We've had some comments. I'm always annoyed that the Instagram comments don't show up. Sometimes they do, but then other times they don't. I don't know what the deal is or why. That's an eCam thing. Maybe I got to update my software. I don't know. But we did have some comments in Instagram, so I will just read them. So shout out to my guy Rod DeRay. He says Knicks in 4. Not surprising. Rod DeRay always the most confident. Listen, I said this on Orange and Blue Bloods. Even though I have picked the Knicks to win every series, I have underestimated them in every series since the Sixers series. Like I thought that series would be tougher. I thought it would go at least 6 games. It was not. I thought the Cavs would be tougher than the Sixers. I thought that series would go 6 games. It did not. So the fact that I'm saying Knicks in 6 is probably a great sign. Every time I picked the Knicks to win in 6, they swept. So I would assume that that's a good omen for Knicks fans, that I said that they would have a tougher time with the series. Every time I said they had a tougher time, they swept. When it comes to also David Shepard's predictions. He has picked the Knicks to lose every series since the Philly series. And he's obviously been wrong, which is what he told you. He's also picking the Knicks to lose this series here. I think that's a very good omen that Shep also picked the Spurs. So I think these are all good signs for the Knicks. I will say I was very annoyed that Air, what's it called? The Air Corgi that he picked against the Knicks, man. I know that Corgi doesn't know what the hell he's talking about, and he's wrong all the time anyway. But I still wanted the Corgi to pick the Knicks. Even if it would have been bad luck, I just liked the idea of the Corgi being part of this Knicks family. And the fact that he picked the Spurs, man, what a loser. I'm done with the Corgi. So, no Corgi, no David Shepard on our side. But nonetheless, I'm picking Knicks in 6. That is a good omen because the Knicks have swept series that I've predicted that they would win in 6. The one I thought that they would dominate, and perhaps I picked them in 5, but I said they could have sweep, which was the Hawks series, ended up being the hardest series they've had so far. So, all good signs here. My guy Gallo also picking Knicks in 6. Shout out to Anthony Gallo. We have to get Anthony Gallo on this show. I don't do this very often where I do the, hey, we got to get bro on the show things. I don't want to put people who watch it on the spot or whatever or be awkward. Gallo's my homie, so I don't feel bad saying this. He knows I would have told him this, that we got to get him on the show. And he wants to get on. It's all of his timing because I happen to do this while he does a real job. He's like working at Fan, both either on the way at Fan when I do a morning show, or he's of course, leaving or still at Fan when I'm ending. So Gallo's the man though. He's another WFAN host. Want to catch his shows. He's usually on during the weekends as well. Awesome dude. He's picking Knicks in 6 as well. Feel good that me and my guy Gallo are on the same page because he's also a smart and reasonably minded Knicks fan. So that's the thing. Shout out to my guy Gallo. My guy Rob Ray once again also saying the Jason Kidd number 5 was fire. Yes, it was. Those Nets uniforms were great. The Nets, let me make this clear about the Nets. Outside the New York Americans uniform, and they had a weird like kind of script uniform in the 80s that I don't think worked. The Nets have never had a bad uniform until the Brooklyn years. The navy red and silver color scheme and logo and everything was great. It was very like 90s going to new millennium look. So like it needed to be upgraded, but it was great. It was a great look, great uniforms. The white uniforms were awesome. So those worked. Also like the Julius Erving era New York Nets uniforms, also awesome. That you want to talk about your jersey that went platinum? The Jason Kidd throwback of that jersey went platinum, even in New York. That was a great jersey. It's just a great jersey. Like forget about because what I always joke about people, and I always say it's kind of a two Americas thing. Like and I mentioned it on X the other day. I was like, man, like I feel like I can't wear like jerseys or fitteds or snapbacks the way I used to as a kid, because back then in what I guess we call street culture, whatever, if that's going to be technical with it. I just think it's like young culture or black culture, but whatever. Like, you didn't think, oh, because that guy's wearing a jersey of this team or a hat of this team, that means that they're a fan. You just say, oh, it's a fly jersey. Like, you match well, or it's just a great jersey, right? Like, I had the LeBron James midnight navy blue jersey, right? I had the Carmelo Anthony, not Knicks, the navy blue alternate Nuggets jersey. Like, I had those jerseys, even though I was not a Nuggets fan or a Cavs fan for sure. Like, but I still loved them because it was just fashion. It was the time. So it's hard to do that. But even in New York, when all these people are Knicks fans, and I'm not saying it was like everywhere, but those Nets throwback uniforms, when they would wear them during that kid era, were awesome. And then his jersey was awesome. When he was one of the highest selling jersey guys during that time. They had a great run. Those uniforms are great. The uniforms prior to that with Derek Coleman and Kenny Anderson and Drazen Petrovic, those were great uniforms, great color scheme. Again, fun. I thought it was fun. Like you can't be super serious when you're the Nets. Like you can be serious when you're the Lakers, you're the Celtics, you're the Knicks, you're the the flagship teams. Now we know the Bulls have been there, right? The Heat are there. Like there's certain teams, even the Heat know you can be fun, right? That's Pat Riley, and they have Miami Vice uniforms. Like they gotta let you know. I really think that it is imperative that they change that branding. It just doesn't work. It does not work. It doesn't make a dent, and it's just nothing. It's minimalist. It's cold, and it does not help that the team is bad. The team is great. You can maybe brand this as something cool. It's just not cool anymore, and it never really got cool. So yeah, man. Also, Rob, loser ass corgi, let Lita pick. We always joke that Lita is a Knicks and a Nuggets fan. We say, why the Nuggets? Well, because we call Lita a Nugget. We like, look at this little Nugget. So we always joke that Lita, her second team is the Nuggets. So we're like, what happens if the Nuggets play the Knicks in the finals? Which is what I picked, by the way, as my NBA finals this year. And I'm like, listen, she's going to be a Knicks person or Knicks doggy during that series. But we always joke that the Nuggets are her second team. So Lita, we don't need to give Lita a ball to throw into a hoop from a staircase. By the way, Lita hates toys. If I throw a inflatable ball at her head, it will just bounce off her head and she won't move. Like, it's not gonna do anything. She's a very active dog, as you've heard during this episode, because she's been in the background. Very active dog, likes to run around, likes to make noise, likes to make her presence felt. Playing with toys is not one of them. So I couldn't even try to do the air corgi thing with Lita. If I had her stand on a thing of stairs and throw a ball at her, she would just look at it. It would just hit her in the head and it wouldn't move. She wouldn't hit it anywhere. I don't think it would make the bottom of the stairs. I don't think it would work. So it's a gimmick that I can't do. But trust me when I say Lita is all in on the Knicks. This one was fun, man. This was a really fun episode. I'm really happy with it, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. Of course, if you enjoyed this episode of 40 Days and Counting, be sure to check out all of our shows wherever you get your podcasts. These podcasts and episodes get updated, so you want to listen to the audio version. Be sure to search New Generation Podcast Network wherever you get your podcasts. If you want to watch these episodes, of course, head over to our YouTube channel, New Generation Media. Be sure to like this video, comment, and of course, subscribe to the channel. Make sure you follow me on X, EJ_Stewart. Make sure you follow me on Instagram and TikTok, ActionEJ. And of course, make sure you follow me on Buzzer, EJ205 Prep, where you find me there. That'll do it for now. This was a fun one. I'm EJ Stewart. I'll see you guys Friday morning, 8 a.m. See ya.